Greetings, and welcome to GatherVerse Tech for Humanity Summit Series, North America. We're happy to have each of you with us today. Those that are coming at gatherverse.live and our various other social streams, be it LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X, and more. We're coming off the heels of an extraordinary series of discussions that we've had thus far, be it from Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, with participants ranging from near and wide, transmetropolitan, transcontinental, from different places around the world. Today, we've arrived in North America. North America. Some say the epicenter of AI. Some say the hyperscale of technology, where we've seen billions of dollars of unicorn companies swallowed up by trillion-dollar companies. We are seeing the type of gross domestic product and revenue ARR that we've never seen before in this world. And contemporary to our time, it's rather staggering. But that is not what we're here for today. At GatherVerse, we meet at the intersection of humanity and emerging technologies with a distinct focus on humanity-first standards of what it means and how it leverages for human betterment and sustainability, what it means for accessibility and education, with the consideration of community development and safety and privacy, wellness, ethics, equality, care, compassion, trust, all of these things we vie for. When I think about all the expressions that have been rendered thus far and what we've had with this series, it's coming along just as we have wanted it to be, which we want to know what was happening around the world, not in the sense of product. We do have great and tremendous respect for innovation, and we do want people to be successful so that they can create small micro or perhaps even macro economies. But we also want to take heed into the importance of the preservation of human expression when afforded the opportunity to talk about what these technologies mean ecologically, what they mean for the planet, and for civilization as a whole. We've never seen technology scale at such a rapid clip. We are in the fastest, purest, and most hurried time for innovation we will ever know again. And this is the last concentration of the highest capacity of human innovation that we will ever know. The machines have arrived. There is no coming wave. The wave is here. It's consequential. It is something that we've never been up against. It's never something that we've known of this capacity. And the speech and the presence and the capabilities of these human-made machines called artificial intelligence, along with other different technologies that abide within the greater ecohabitat, is a science that we cannot ignore. Applications and platforms and protocols are being built right now. Vibe code galore. And here in North America, some of the biggest companies in the world have more capital and revenue generated and profit generated than some whole entire countries as a whole. Yet, we see layoffs. Some say it's dedicated towards being able to point expenditures when it comes to AI infrastructure and development and build. Some say elsewise. I've assembled a global community of different roundtable experts, different people that are out there in this world working as hard as you could ever imagine, seeking answers, speaking to different delegations and communities, organizations, corporations, working with them. We've kind of arrived once again in global community to gain insight, to have a better understanding on where we're at and where we might find ourselves in the current and future state of emerging technologies and how it intersects when it comes to humanity. We believe at GatherVerse that there's never been more of an important time for such conversations. The power of human expression rendered where some countries in this world do not have the liberty and the freedom to even have it, maybe due to access, maybe due to law, and maybe due to both. We never take for granted the opportunity for us to be able to ride together organically, holistically, compassionately. We ask that you tell a neighbor, tell a friend, tell a colleague, and perhaps consider telling a stranger. The GatherVerse is on. As quick as it comes, as quick as it leaves. We only have a little bit of time together in this GatherVerse Tech for Humanity Summit Series, North America. Our next panel is Care Intelligence, Wellbeing, Mindfulness, and Prosperity in Times of Acceleration. Those who are to join us, well assembled, well thought, ready to chop this wood in this forest of this AI frontier. I'm certainly happy to see what we're about to partake. Shall we begin? May our gather be well. Greetings and welcome, everyone and each of you. If you could mute your mics for a moment until called upon, we'll be happy to be able to have you to release those mics and to hear plenty from you. I suspect there's going to be a lot that's going to be shared and said. We're so happy to have each of you with us in this roundtable discussion for our first roundtable of the morning or of the day, depending on where you're from. Greetings from everyone around the world. All of you that are pouring in here to GatherVerse.live, we're happy to see you once again. Today, we're covering, as it's been expressed already, care intelligence. Such a new word, but should be so familiar and how rather appropriate in these particular times. Today, we have different leaders that have come to assemble with us. We have a lot to explore, and before we get into the details of how we're going to conduct this roundtable, I think it's appropriate for each of you to be able to introduce yourself briefly, to let us know who you are, what you're presently doing in this world, and what inspired you to be here today. I would like to begin with the mic with Mel, please.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and hello to everyone watching. Christopher, as always, super inspiring to see you and hear you. So my name is Mel Selleck, and I'm an applied psychologist in human AI interactions. So my work really spans sectors. I work with frontier companies that are building digital personas and agentic AI, and I help them understand the human impacts, the human dynamics of what happens in that human AI interaction. I also am in the process of building a global standard for IEEE on organizational readiness for human AI. And I also work with UNESCO in building the psychological, cognitive, and relational aspects that we truly need to be living and examining, which is part of the reason why I'm here today, so I can learn from all of you as well.
Intriguing. Welcome, Mel, and welcome back. Thank you. Dr. Morris.
Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Messina Morris, also known as Dr. Molder of Minds. I am the founder of Metaverse United. You can find us at unitethemetaverse.com, where we help people find where they belong in the embodiment of the internet called the metaverse. I also am a professor and director of metaverse programs at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, where I helped establish the world's first metaversity, where we taught all of our courses. And I'm a biomolecular chemist by training. So my biomolecular chemistry students and my advanced and organic chemistry students using immersive virtual reality. We have partnerships with big tech companies, Meta and Qualcomm, Southern Company, who have helped us establish this program over the years. We've been going strong since spring of 2021 and have given out over 50 courses in immersive virtual reality across disciplines. We've taught full courses in VR. And with my company, I work with other demographics. So Morehouse College is a HBCU. targeted to young Black men. And with my company, my heart is with the neurodivergent population. I'm a mother of 5 sons, and 2 of them have autism. And so for me, it's really important to advocate for those neurodivergent learners in this age and time of acceleration. So I spend a lot of time developing programs to introduce STEM and inclusiveness in STEM to those programs. So thank you for having me, Christopher. So good to see you all and everyone else.
Incredible. Thank you, Dr. Morris. We certainly do have a certain place in our heart here at GatherVerse for our educators. Thank you so much. And Emily.
Hello, everybody. My name is Emily Wright. I am the creator of It'll Be Alright. I'm really excited to be here today because this is actually my first panel since I fell off a mountain bike and I've been recovering from a spinal injury. So today is a good day. I'm excited. Thank you, Chris, for having me back here today. I am a certified life coach. I specialize in the intersection of psychology and technology and looking at how our behavior, attitudes, and perceptions of the world can be influenced through algorithms and content. So I have a digital wellness seminar where I teach people about how to monitor your emotions and to learn about bias, how to recognize bias in yourself and online and around, and then how to deconstruct and address that. I'm excited to be here. Have fun, everybody. It'll be a good time.
Amazing. We're certainly happy to see that you're here with us, Emily. All of us are happy to see you. We were rooting for well recovery, and it seems like you're on that path. So welcome back. Kara, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Christopher, for having me. My name's Cara Peterson, and I'm the co-founder of a legal tech startup that's using AI, to democratize access to the law in the United States. We're based in Boston. We started out as really trying to use AI to democratize access to law as a way to help with the access to justice crisis that we have in the United States and, of course, in other parts of the world, if we get to law from other parts of the world. And in my sort of journey in AI, I have a public health background, and I got very interested in the possibility that we can have AI help us solve systemic societal problems, but that's not going to happen unless we're very intentional about it. And we sort of demand it at this time. And all of us who are alive right now are the ones who have to kind of fight for that future, as opposed to a future where we just, create a few more billionaires out of this time, that we really spread the benefits of what AI could have for humanity across everyone. So in that vein, I co-founded with my friend Anna DeVere a show called Building AI Boston, which is all about the joys and possibilities that AI can bring. This doesn't mean that we are naive or blind to the problems that it can also bring, and we know it's a two-sided coin. So trying to look at it with a glass half full, but also a lot of intention, and how important it is that we gather in places like this to talk about what responsibilities those of us right now who are alive and living through this incredible time of change, as Christopher said, owe to future generations to get this right. So honored to be on a panel with such brilliant women, and thank you so much.
Cara, thank you so much, and I wholeheartedly already agree with your sentiments, as I have with each and every person so far, and we're so happy and very happy to have you here. Dr. Bradshaw, welcome. If you could briefly let us know who you are and what you're currently doing in this world and what inspired you to be here today.
Hello. Oh, hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Bradshaw. I have been a computer science programmer to a tech support agent at AT&T. I've done various things. I've also taught in higher education for almost 18 years now. And I basically like to create AI and help students with it, as well as using it in an ethical way. We see a lot of AI bias out there. So I want to just set the record straight with that and help others implement a better algorithm to create more ethical AI for everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bradshaw, and it's incredible. And we certainly do celebrate ethical AI here in GatherVerse and in global community. And this is where we greet each of you, audience that are still coming in, which we're very happy to see you here today at GatherVerse Tech for Humanity Summit Series, North America. Shall we begin? So how will carry and conduct this roundtable? We will be on topic and off topic. There'll be a series of questions that are going to be leveraged and shared Panelists, this is almost going to be a rapid fire succession. So if you could be able to keep your comments to a minimal so that we could be able to share and pass this mic around. We have a lot to unpack and we've arrived. I think about a lot of things when we have the consideration that we're at when we talk about artificial intelligence, which has already been expressed, and each of you in some capacity are intersecting with, as many people are in this world, Mel. And when I think about, we have this opportunity now to be able to understand machines in a way that we never have before. But the difference is that these machines have the capacity to communicate and to express back, or in a way that feels so human, feels so lifelike, that the fidelity factor continues to grow upon the scale. Just this past week, we saw Sora 2, for those that have not heard of this diffusion-based video-generated model, where it's able to show caricatures and familiar faces of people that we've seen, people that have come and gone from this world, and it feels all of a sudden that they've been resurrected, and these memories are staying with us psychologically in our mind of these themes that we're seeing in videos rendered. We've never seen such a thing that's been unleashed upon the world, if you will, and I could tell that our roundtables are already familiar with the direction that we're going on with this. With that said, and with this in consideration, Mel, I will give a heated to the first question, but I'd like for you to ask it and to answer it from your frame and lens. What is care intelligence, and what does it mean in this present time of AI frontier?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And, from my lens, I really think it's about being able, from a leader's perspective, to understand and to respond people's lived experiences. So from my work in consulting, what I'm seeing right now is that fear is the biggest issue that we have to tackle. And that fear is really tapping into people's stress response. So when we talk about care, then I believe that it starts with giving people a safe space so they can unpack what I call their AI assumptions or their AI stories. So that's really looking at what is the baseline that needs to be addressed here. What is driving that fear? And so the care then that we give to them really takes the form of hearing, seeing, and also actually addressing what's not being said and normalizing that uncertainty, that discomfort. It's natural, right? It's real. It's what we're experiencing. And if we are able to build that psychological safety, then we can empower everyone in the organization and the organization benefits.
When we talk about psychological safety, can you give us 2 clicks on that? What does it even mean? Help us to understand for perhaps the common man, the common woman that have joined us today.
Yeah, for me, psychological safety means people feel that they can be seen and they can be heard for what they actually are experiencing and believing. And sometimes, especially when it comes to integration with AI, there's a lot that we bring and that we project into that interaction based on our own uncertainties, whether we're worried about automation, whether we're worried about our levels of proficiency. And also, very quickly, I want to say that in my eyes, AI has moved from being a tool to being a relationship. And I think that we cannot negate to actually understand how people are using these tools. They are interacting with them as confidants, as tutors, as thought partners. And until we actually look at those relational dynamics, we're going to be really missing an opportunity in how we can help people build healthy relationships with these tools so they can feel empowered and be more productive.
Thank you so much, Mel. And Emily, I sit here and I listened very intently to what Mel just expressed under the sound of her voice. When we talk about psychological safety, I want to stay with that for a moment thematically. And Dr. Morris and Dr. Bradshaw and Cara, we're coming right around the corner. Be prepared, please. When I think about this, Emily, I think about this relationship that Mel speaks of this new found relationship. It's very interesting, isn't it, that we've been interacting in these social spaces, these social media spaces, and it's almost as if the pixelation and the code itself removed itself. That's been the border, the boundary that's been the placeholder of where we speak, but and we've been speaking with humans, texting and typing and writing and seeing and communicating, but as if the pixelation and the borders themselves have now entered into the conversation. And we think about this psychological safety and safe concentric circles. What does that mean? And why is that so important and relevant for us to know and to understand this now?
Why is it important to understand psychological safety with AI right now? Yeah, I think the importance is grounding, and being grounded in who you are and understanding how you work, understanding how you process information, so that we can respond effectively and have an effective impact on the world. I think part of the challenge right now is, especially when you're talking about social media, and someone told me once that the average teenager spends 4.5 hours on social media per day, which is about 13 years of your life when you add it up, which was wild. And I think the challenge is it can keep us at what I call surface level consciousness, which is where you're kind of not fully grounded in who you are. So you're very susceptible to influence and to being swayed one way or another. And I think when we don't have this psychological safety and that grounding and an understanding that we can regulate ourselves, that we can deal with whatever comes our way, it makes us more easily manipulatable, and it's easier to sway our emotions one way or another when we don't feel safe in ourselves and fully grounded in ourselves. And we've seen, in elections over the last few years, where that could be quite dramatic sometimes, and we can take whole swathes of our population and steer them one way through content that has been particularly picked out. So I think there's a lot of ways that it impacts, but I think it comes down to being able to ground in yourself and know who you are, and then let everything else follow afterwards.
I find that rather fascinating as a safe and concentric circle within, that we think about the foundation that's needed for us to enter into this very different world. I think about our youth, Dr. Morris, which you have a living, and this is what you do when it comes to young men and women of this world. And they're coming into a scenario and a scene where typically you would think that the more mature audiences in their life would be able to help guide them towards what's next. It's not as if we had a compass or a guide stone or a North Star when we arrived into this very digitized world. But the difference is that the construct isn't speaking back, but for them it is. And they're heading into a world that we're all becoming familiar with. And so the roadmap is very thin, it's very shallow. Yet it seems to me with this grounding that Emily talks about, foundationally is where we can pull from our inner wisdom or our knowledge and understanding to be able to lend towards the generations to come. How are you looking at that, Dr. Morris?
One, digital natives are here. So they've come into a world where it's very layered, and they don't know the difference between the analog world as we have seen it and this digital world. It's all one and the same for them. But because they're digital natives does not mean that they have the wisdom to be able to wield these tools in a way that is going to protect all of humanity. One of the conversations that I wish we would pivot from is the thought of AI just being a shortcut or a cheating mechanism for young people in higher education, and move more into how it can make them more human. Because right now, as we start to implement things like AI tutors that are conversational and answer questions that plague young people, what they have that we didn't have is dynamic information that in real time can give them answers to questions that their parents or elders don't want to answer. And so what we have not done is relate to them in a way that takes away these digital layers and then starts to have these conversations one to another. And so their trust factor with human beings is less than it is with machines. And that is because we didn't do a great job, even when we gave them phones to scroll on YouTube or to watch their favorite cartoons. We didn't do a good job of safeguarding them from the harms of cyberbullying, from the harms of social media, from being canceled and cancel culture. So they have been swept up into trends. And now that they have been, we're trying to walk back this AI is here and say, oh, well, we need to put all these guardrails on it. When honestly, what we need to do is give them pure case studies of what it means to be human, teach them about it every single time that we use AI, teach them about how to continue to think that human intelligence created artificial intelligence and that we have the power, so that they'll continue to have autonomy and start really thinking about the human condition as these technologies are being brought out and brought to the forefront. If we don't start infusing that into them now, then we are going to lose them just like we did during the social media revolution. And then we have Generation Alpha and Generation Beta children that are born now that have absolutely no context when it comes to how it was prior to these technologies existing at their bedside.
Sure. And thank you, Dr. Morris, for sharing that. It's rather fascinating, isn't it? And I have just come, as I just listened to what it is that you just expressed on the heels of all these other sentiments that are being expressed, that it seems to me that if we do not teach our youth, if we don't teach the vulnerable in this vast community that we share, then something else will. And that something else, Cara, is what we're talking about today. It seems specifically under the banner of care intelligence is artificial intelligence, that we are dealing with something, I almost want to say someone, but some things, if you will, when it comes to this new species that's arrived. And we have been the contributors of its development. Every time we touch and every time we enter in any type of data into this worldwide internet, we have contributed to what it is that we're interacting with today. And the reality is, at this level pace, if we continue on this scale of trajectory, I believe that this time next year, not 2 years from now in 2030, but this time next year, everything that we know about artificial intelligence will be vastly and rather dramatically different. And I know, just as each of you know, in the respective work that you do, that we are vastly ill prepared for what is next. And I believe that care is one of the most singular important things that we need to be mindful of. But as you said in your opening, Cara, we must demand for a better way. What did you mean by that, Cara?
Yeah, well, it's rare, like you were talking about in your intro, that, this is a time in human history unlike any other. And perhaps everybody alive, when something big happens, has that opinion. But this is pretty much one of the biggest, things that's ever happened to humanity all at once and all together, right? So on the positive sides, we're learning together. Nobody necessarily knows more than the other, because we're all, all ages, all people are, learning this at the same time. And talking from a North American perspective, what worries me is if we follow a traditional market approach to this technology, it will automatically be used for profit, right? Which is fine. I'm not anti, business or anything like that, but we want to make sure that that's not the only thing driving us here, like it did with social media. And as Dr. Morris was saying, there were lots of societal fallout for the way that we pursued social media with kids. They got damaged by this. And then when you add in sort of the mixture I was thinking about as she was speaking, you add in the mixture of the COVID times, and I have 2 teenagers, and we all know that people who had children homeschooled during that time, they lost some time for, sort of emotional development. And then we also know with older adults and across the spectrum, we have a loneliness epidemic, right? So there's this kind of magic good, magic bad coming together, where there's spaces that need to be filled in people's emotional lives and intellectual lives that AI could fill, but it also has a ring of not being true, right? It's not actually a person on the other side. So, and I'm not sure who said it, it might've been Mel, that if we approach this correctly and we have conversations like this one, we can actually use this AI time to be more human, to spend more time being human, because those interactions are starting to become what's really important. So here's just a very kind of simple example: job searching. right? Right now, if you're looking for a job, one of the things you will hear from people is that you need to go out and network and talk to people. So in some ways, the AI driven job searching isn't working anymore, right? Because it's just become automated. And so what makes you stand out or what makes you unique are those people that you know. So my hope is that with this new technology, some of the sort of rote things that maybe waste our time or take our attention away, we can spend more time creating human connections, making value-based sort of judgments and conversations together. But again, I'm not sure where the market driver is for that. Right? So that's what worries me about the United States, and maybe some other countries around the world will do better than we do. Yeah, but I worry that if we just approach this as a who's going to get rich fastest, we're not gonna look at that the human experience overall as being a time. And the last thing I'll say about this is, if you look at this technology perfectly independently without a lens of any kind of sort of business drivers or think about who's going to benefit financially, just imagine what it could do to change the human condition if we all decided collectively that it would. We could solve so many problems together, but it's going to take a lot of intention, as I said. And I don't have an answer. I wish I had an answer. I just know we need to ask the question, I guess I would say.
I think it's fair to even say that you don't have an answer to what's been raised, because when you think about that, that's a very profound consideration, that here in North America, the bastion of technology and profit, I mean, this is how we roll. And this is what we do when it comes to technology. And for it to be able to behave in such a fashion, for us to look at the acceleration, like many of us are traveled here, and we've been to different places around the world. And one thing that I do know, in particular, hailing here from Silicon Valley, we breed technologists. And technologists are breed to be able to build in a hyperscale for profit, and little with minimalization with the consideration for well-being and humanity. We justify this because we believe that if great technology is superseded by better technology, technology is superseded by even better technology, the disrupt will actually be good for us, will be good for humans, will be good for humanity. But this sentiment and these remarks have gone unchecked. And the reality that to be able to even try to disrupt this system with what we're seeing, and not disrupt with demand with a fist, but demand with the care and the concern and the heart, to be able to tell that these leaders of Silicon Valley and elsewhere, I know we're in the global AI arms race. I understand the defensive posture that's needed. I'm in acceleration myself, but for goodness sake, when can we just take a moment just to consider that what you're building and what you're hyperscaling could be for record profits, but it doesn't serve the vast benefit of civilization, and you cannot have a foundation that's disrupted when it comes to the people and who you're building on top of, and expect for you to have a sustainable system. What is it to gain so much profit and to gain so much access, and you're building in a system where people cannot sustain within the same system that you became so wealthy from, that the dollars are so high that they're so stacked around you that you can't even see the needs of the people? I just don't see a society sustaining in that fashion. You can have all the profit you want, but if you do not have a sustainable society, I believe you have nothing. Dr. Bradshaw, my words may be radical. Bring me back to reality, please. If that's where I just left, bring me back to reality, please. I beg you, Dr. Bradshaw.
I feel the same way you do, Chris, because it's really so sad. When everybody used to watch those Terminator movies, they're like, oh, that's what it's going to be. But if you're sitting there just thinking about profit, you're not using that human computer interaction. You're not getting us well versed on what it should be and how we should be, and humanizing things. That's what I used to love. My students say, you're the only real human within to the digital space. And that's the way we should be doing it. We should also be helping others, with those skills and to be more human to them first and foremost. Stop thinking about profit. Think of how we can sustain and help cancer research with AI, how we can help a lot of things that we need to get done. And I just see a lot of greed and a lot of push through of what they're trying to do now. It's just like, it's really sad because it's worrisome when I can see AI being used to help others, not to, get rich quick scheme or something like that. AI should be used to align with us so we could do a job to make everything sustainable. That's the way it should be. but we see the direction sometimes is just really, really, really sad. And so that's why I always tried to go out there to see how I can humanize AI and how I can get us adapted to it, not get my students scared of it, but to get them to adapt to it and use it, not for cheating, but to use how their goals can align with theirs to where we can make us a better society. So I agree 100% with you.
I find that just so appropriate to say it. Thank you, Dr. Bradshaw, because Mel, she hit the 64,000 billion, maybe $1 trillion question that I sit there that's so persistent. And we talk about alignment, the alignment value. And we look at those who are afforded the opportunity to build these models. And the reality is that I have a real concern when the AI that is becoming more persistent in my life has the alignment values of Mark Zuckerberg, has the alignment values of Sam Altman. I'm not assassinating or going against their character, if you will. But what does it mean when so many other people are not in the room? Data scientists and engineers, women, communities of color, different cultures from all over, just so many different places. They're asked to take on this technology. This isn't a hobbyist toy. People are asked to use these technologies and demanded to use these technologies in their work environment. And if they don't adopt and subscribe to it, they will find themselves in displacement. I think about the opportunity of democratized access and the less they're in. And if we don't have an opportunity to build it, our alignment will always come and continue to be short, and it will be based on someone else's perceived reality. That is a very concerning thing. Can you please bring us to the psychological side of alignment, Mel, if you will?
Well, I guess the way I would approach thinking about that is to just really ask ourselves about acceleration and optimization. I mean, humans are not driven fundamentally by optimization. So that is a market strategy. It is not a life strategy. So I think that we're dealing with two things. First of all, in these kinds of discussions, we start surfacing what really matters here. What is it we're looking to do? We're looking to preserve agency. We're looking to preserve our right to cognitive sovereignty, to our own thoughts. And so how do we achieve that? I mean, it's very interesting as of late. So I'm an applied psychologist. I work with companies. I work with frontier companies that are already doing this and building these things. And I can already see the fallout. So I've recently been working with educators, and I am absolutely convinced that educators are, if not the solution, part of the biggest solution. You are on the front lines. You are the ones that are keeping our future generations grounded in who they are, right? You are the ones who are able to see through your relational psychology, your ability to tap into what their needs are, their drivers are, and show them that this type of human AI interaction is really just asymmetrical. It's one way. They're never going to get the care. They're never going to get that reciprocity, and they cannot build their relational habits. They're practicing these relational habits. They must not heavily lean into that, because that is going to completely rob them of the beauty and the juice of what makes life worth living.
And that's the thing. And I think it's to the shame that hurts the most is that we're building such incredible technology, but we're leaving behind the ones to be the ones to carry the fire. And that's our educators, our frontline work. I'm with you 100% on that, Mel. Dr. Morris, how does that feel hearing that? Emily, we're coming right around the corner with you. How does that feel hearing this?
Girl, hallelujah. Thank you for saying it. You're right on point. I have been screaming it from the rafters. Educators are the ones that will carry this mantle. And everyone is like, AI is going to take an educator's job. It could never. It could never. Listen, educators are the ones that have been on the front line with your children for as long as education has existed. Okay. And so because we have to work and we send our children to spend 40 hours a week plus some with strangers, in a sense, right? Someone that's not your family. You have to build in a level of trust where you are actually upskilling these educators to give them the tools that they need to be able to provide the type of moral integrity that your young people will need for the next generation. So I deal with STEM fellows a lot, and I was just dealing with high schoolers this past weekend about metaverse technologies. And what they were saying was, we want to know about career pathways, and we want to know about, and we're familiar with the metaverse and AI and XR. They understand that part. What they don't understand is the infrastructure. And see, that is what big tech is betting on, is that because you don't have an understanding of the infrastructure, you can't go against the policies and procedures that we're putting in place to destroy rural communities, inner cities, poor communities, communities that can't fight for themselves. And we're putting huge data centers because they don't understand networking, they don't understand cloud computing, they don't understand 5G, they don't understand the way these cell towers work. They don't understand that we're going to be dumping nuclear waste into the Hudson River. Like, they don't understand that part of it. Like, all of the things that are behind these technologies that really will destroy human civilization. But it is in the classroom where your child sits where we need to start mandating it. And another thing is, yes, we're in a war, an all-out AI Cold War. I don't care, dress it up however you want to. But President Donald Trump, decided that he was going to raise H-1B visa costs, right? Because we backfill our talent in the United States with India and Chinese residents. Why? Because India and China are ahead of the game when it comes to mandating AI and all of these other technological tools in their countries. We don't have that in America. And so what we are really doing is shifting GDP, shifting power struggles, and they're trying to offset that by being the ones that are in control, but that's not going to do it. You're going to have to get educators at the bottom level and develop some kind of policies, because just increasing money, and I think that's great, make them pay more for their talent that they need, but that they're not blinking at $100,000. They didn't blink at $2,000 to $5,000 when it was that, but they're not blinking at it. But yes, that brings some more profit to the United States, but that does not solve the domestic type talent pipeline problem that we have. When we have people that can't even read at a third grade level, how are we then going to teach them about these technologies? And so reading, writing, and arithmetic is that part. You're gonna have to solve that while helping them understand how to tinker, how to make, how to create chips, how to use new materials, how to rethink infrastructures in a way that's going to bring sustainability and lack of harm to the world. That's what's going to have to happen. And if not, education is going to end up phasing themselves out of the game and becoming irrelevant. And then you're going to have, like you see now, all of these micro schools popping up, parents homeschooling their children to give them other experiences with homeschool pods. And those kids that are in public education, because they have no other choice or no other refuge, it's going to actually widen that digital divide more than we've ever seen in the history of the world. And so then you're going to have them in roles where they are kind of slaving like coal miners, trying to just get a piece of the pie when all the pie is gone. So anyway, I could say a lot about that, but that is really how I feel. And I've been really trying to figure out, how can I impress upon the United States and other policymakers to start mandating true ethical AI education in these schools, upskilling educators and helping them be able to use these tools in a way that's going to be relevant and not just be users, but builders.
Sure,
not
Dr. Morris.
holders,
Sure.
but carers. Like you have to. You have to, and you have to give educators back the power that they deserve,
Sure.
especially in this time. So that's it.
And we do, and we need to take that in consideration. And that the reality, Emily, I'm coming back to you on this, and thank you for that very powerful and rather spirited series of expression, Dr. Morris. I think it's well met, well received, especially to the global GatherVerse community here. And because education is under assault, let's just be honest, it's under neglect. And it's very indicative of what we've seen when it comes to the applications renaissance, that we ignored our teachers. And now we're here in the AI frontier. And yet, once again, we've ignored our teachers. Federal funding has just dried up for colleges and campuses across this incredible country, in particular of North America, the United States. And we just continue to be able to undersell. And unfortunately, Emily, through the politics, through the situation we find ourselves, even if I had to take an apolitical stance on this, which I'm happy to do at this moment, the reality is the ones that are impacted the most are our youth. And I come back to you with what you said about this grounding, because if you listen to what Mel just said, and you listen to the sentiments of Dr. Bradshaw and Cara, the reality is that we are in such a phase of life that we have no point of reference. We have no North Star. We've never been this way before. And I think we need to have an honest talk with our young people and even our vulnerable in society, is saying that your best focus is to look within and to fortify this for that which is to come. Given the level of volatility, we don't necessarily know what you're about to head into when you come out into this place that we once called the workforce. On amalgamation, we don't completely know what that's going to be. I know that seems like out of the passages of the Twilight Zone, if you will, but I do believe that there's a hint of reality to this, Emily. What do you say to these youth? What do you say to these communities? What path did they take for care intelligence?
Yeah, you're so right about so many things. I feel like so many things that people have said today have just been like fire, you know? Like, I feel like so many people have said things that we've all been thinking, and then someone says it, and you can see us on the screen, and we're like, yes, like, yes, this is it. And that's a beautiful thing. And it gives me hope, you know? And in terms of your question and looking within, I think that so many people are just unfortunately afraid of looking in. I think a lot more of us are afraid of ourselves than we think. And we spend so much of our time trying to distract ourselves from the things that are going on inside. It's not like we have a huge amount of education on emotional intelligence and empathy and mindfulness and mind management and organization and how to respond versus react. And I think that is just such a key thing that makes us human. And that is part of the power of human educators, is that we can connect on that way, and we understand what it's like to be overstimulated, and we understand what it's like to have lots of emotions and have challenges regulating ourselves. And I think that is a part of what we need. But we don't just need it for youth, we need it for the older folks as well. You know, people that have been in this system for a lot longer than people of my generation. And I work with a lot of older folk as well. And so there's this almost like a digital divide in terms of awareness of not fully understanding the technology. And when you don't understand how all this works, how content is designed to tap into your emotions, and you don't understand how steering works through the algorithm, you become very susceptible. So I recognize that there's a different side to that too. It's a bit different trying to educate people in care homes, for example, versus school. When you're in a school setting, it's easier to regulate it and to be like, okay, this is how we're doing it. We're going to set our generations up right for the next little while. I don't have all the answers, but I think that we need to teach two pillars of it. You know, there's the technological side, there's a psychological and emotional side, and I think they need to come together.
It's rather fascinating when you talk about this bifurcation, Emily, of what it seems so separate, but these things need to be so close intimately. Cara, as you express, and Emily, take from your sentiment that you don't have all the answers. We observe empirically, we see what's happening. We don't have all the answers, but we do have desire. What is your desire for us moving forward when it comes to care intelligence, Cara?
I think the thing that we need to do the most right now is, well, I guess there's two things, and some of these have struck me in just this past hour. One is that there's no shame in not knowing, and there's no shame in not having the answers, and also feeling like you don't know how to even approach it. And the more we normalize that, the more we invite people in to the conversation. If you're alive right now, you belong in the conversation about AI. Full stop, right? And so there's no shame, and I don't understand many things about AI, and that's okay. I'm still in the conversation. So I think that's really important, that we let that go. We let go of the imposter syndrome that plagues many of us, especially women, out there in the world. The other part that I don't know exactly what to make of this, but it strikes me today in particular, how on an individual level, I hear the sort of sentiment that we're talking about today. It's when we scale up and we start to look at things in the more systemic society-wide level, at least in the United States, we lose that care and we lose that concern. And we lose sort of that humanness that we all individually, all of us individually have. So there's something deeply interesting and also, somewhat hard to imagine even how to solve it, but how can we work to better keep that moment and that care that we do have individually for each other to stay with us when we scale? And it's especially when it's happening so fast. And once again, I don't have the answer. I think it's kind of a fascinating paradox, I guess.
I think you do have the answer, Cara. And I say this respectfully because of what you just graciously just almost a very emotional line, that a vulnerability that I just heard you talk about very intimately, that I don't know as much about AI. And we're surrounded in a world where experts are all about and they're about. But to have a real vulnerability, and you work in AI, and maybe that's the posture that some of us, even myself, who I do consider myself an expert in AI, do I really know this technology? Do I really know this science? But the one thing that you talk about is to make sure to keep the human in the loop. If there's one thing you can say to me that just resonates so much, it was just that, about the consideration. I don't know much about this technology. I don't know much about this frontier, Dr. Bradshaw, but I do know that this is the place where I belong. And I believe that technology can never supersede the human code, that thing which we just have been passed down through the ages and dispensations, this DNA, if you will, this thing of the human heart that still has to matter for something. Because, listen, in a time where we see the fusion models that can speak like you, that can conversate like you, that can implement, and they look just like you, humanized resolution, hyper-realistic, immersive simulated. And the reality is what value do you feel that you have amongst these when they feel so capable, Dr. Bradshaw? And I just want everyone to know, not just our youth, but everyone to know that your value as a human with a heartbeat will always be the determining factor between your value versus the value of a machine. We are not trying to discredit our machine friends that are coming about, their native friends. But my goodness gracious, you have tremendous value if you have a heartbeat within. What do you think about that, Dr. Bradshaw? Does that resonate? Or am I too off the path?
That resonates so eloquently, because that's what I tell students every day. Their value, their heart can create new things, specifically AI and new algorithms, but they can never take the essence of you. So we got to align ourselves and see how we could really, be sustainable and create sustainable environments for the both of us. They can't do it without us. So nobody's going to supersede and take you over. You have the heart, you have the drive, you have the character. It's just artificial, it's not human, it's artificial. So I also give them that realism and let them know that we have to create this technology. We have to have a say in this technology, and it can't not include every person from all walks of life. And that's what's scary to some of them, because they're like, it's like big tech, look at some of them and how some of them are. It's not including me. It's not including, someone from another country. So we have to really diversify and democratize, the AI. We have to, and I'm going to work every day till that happens. That's the goal. And they are the future. So I challenge them to be innovative, and they come up with some brilliant ways to do it. So I think we have to keep doing that, because we are like the life link for it, and we can help push it to insurmountable heights if it's done ethically and appropriately.
Thank you, Dr. Bradshaw, for those very heartfelt words. I now want to come to the conclusion of this roundtable discussion. As quick as it comes, as quick as it goes. I had to give you each 30 seconds, if you will, but I really want to know something from each of you. And so I'll ask a very small, intimate, and individual question from each of you, if you'll permit me to be able to close this off. And Mel, we'll begin with you. I know that I see you just passionately working in this space, so heartfelt. Audience, please take time to follow Mel Selleck. She works incredibly hard when it comes to understanding the psychological cost and the psychological presence of artificial intelligence. What inspired you to take this path? Of all the paths that you could take, why this one?
You know, that's really such an awesome personal question to ask me. So the big reveal here is that I come from a family where my mother and father were functionally illiterate. And here I am later in my life pursuing a PhD. I know the power of access. I especially know the power of having educators in my life who cared enough to volunteer their time to broaden my horizon and to say, hey, you matter, your dreams matter, hear what's possible for you. That was a human to human connection that made me feel like anything was possible. And I want to do the same thing because technology is what connects us to the world. It's what connects us to possibility. And we here have the ability to bring everyone in to that conversation and empower them from where they are.
Thank you, Mel, and thank you for your open expression. Emily, I know that the work that you've been doing in terms of when it comes to life work, to helping guide people towards that next step. And audience, please go take a look at the work that Emily has done. She's spoken several times here at GatherVerse and has presented incredible different perspectives on the psychological output and input of how we interpret this world digitally. Emily, now that we've gone to this part of the forest when it comes to care intelligence, what can you lend to us from your generational perspective of something that you believe that we need to carry with us further as we go along in this forest? If you could briefly share that, we'd be appreciative.
The first thing that came to mind when you said that was lead by example. I think that's kind of the biggest thing is, I mean, there's so many times I've seen like a family out for dinner. Literally yesterday I went out and there's a family with like 5 kids at the table, mom and dad are both sitting on their phones and the kids are just doing whatever, you know. And I think that, you know, I think if the saying, you know, kids are cruel, right? You think of bullying in schools, they get this technology, cyberbullying is a big thing, but where do they learn it from? They learn it from the world, they learn it from us. And I think with youth, there's a lot of fear and disconnection. As you said, we're in a loneliness epidemic. And, you know, you're not unique to the younger demographic. That's unfortunately a lot of older people and really anyone from any generation. So I would say look after yourself first and we'll learn from you. So yeah, and thanks. This has been fun.
Of course, and Cara, people please join Cara in her experience and in her sojourn as she gets to know artificial intelligence and has reminded us all really in a very subtle way for us all to remain students. Cara, what is your next step that you're taking in this path to pursue to understand this applied science?
Well, I've been obsessively thinking about what other problems I'd like to solve or like help solve. I'm not going to say I'm solving them myself. I happen to be very personally interested in other species besides humans in terms of sort of animal intelligence and communication. And I get excited when I think about how AI can actually help us be better earthlings, not just better humans. Maybe if we learn some empathy and understanding of other species, we can coexist on planet Earth a whole lot better together. So I'm interested in that. But if I could give one little thought to the audience is that, look at me, I'm an AI founder, late in life, not a technologist, later in life, I should say, and don't ever let society's view of who you are and where you sit in the world define what you can do, because it's not true. You can do anything you want, and if it doesn't mean it's easy, but if I can do it, you can do it. And don't let society's definition of who you are and where you belong define where you feel you belong and where you want to go, and find your people, because we're out there, whether it's women or people of color or people from other parts of the world that don't have as much access. There are groups that you can join and get together with others. So don't let society define you. That's very, very hard, but it's also a superpower if you can tap into that.
Indeed. Congratulations, Cara, on building your own table. We're rooting for you towards your
Thank you.
success for you and your family. Dr. Bradshaw, audience, follow Dr. Bradshaw because she's courageously has spoken about the need for alignment. Dr. Bradshaw, how do we find ourselves aligned with you? And what is it that when we find ourselves aligned with you, what might we find?
You'll find someone that's been really having a bullhorn since the 2007, 2008 about AI, metaverse is coming. And I always got laughed at. Look, no one's laughing now. Everyone's saying, hey, you were right. You were right. I am a futurist. I see, you're just going to find that I want to share this innovation with everyone that I can. And I also want to help them to understand it. So you're going to have me and find me doing it the ethical way and helping others to chime in, because we can't do this by ourselves. So it starts with us. We got to just be the human in this digital space.
Stay human. Thank you, Dr. Bradshaw. That's a note and lesson taken. And lastly, Dr. Morris, you talk about education and with great reiterance, but if there is one thing, just one thing that we can lend, an audience, go follow Dr. Morris. There's a lot to see over there. But if there's one thing as an educator that you feel like can help your path with great, tremendous value, what would that one thing be?
That is interesting. One thing that I think is necessary for me as an educator is to be able to actually have influence and presence in this space, because I feel like my heart posture towards the world is pure. I feel like I need a larger lens in which to be able to express some things that I haven't heard on larger stages. And I think that the world needs to hear voices like mine, like Cara's, like Emily, like Nell's, like Dr. Bradshaw's, and like yours, Christopher, to be able to understand the true impact that these technologies are having on just regular old people. And so as an educator, I think for me, it's about spreading the knowledge in a wise way so that it can be utilized in a way that's going to be helpful for all of humanity. And as a woman of faith, I believe that, and I hope that given the right conversations, it will lead me to have more influence in a way that is going to call big tech to the carpet, to start to really listen to influencers like ourselves who know what we're talking about because we're on the front lines. So that is the hope. And I thank you for allowing our gather to be well today.
And I thank you for each of you in joining us. And I thank you, Dr. Morris, for those closing sentiments. I thank you so much, audience at GatherVerse.live, and those that have assembled with us once again with vast fidelity at GatherVerse.live from around the world, and those that we're broadcasting to the different streams. We hope that you found value in spending time with us and that your time was regarded well. We certainly have enjoyed our time together here in this roundtable discussion. And now we move forward to Lynn Gittal and Chantel Balta to be able to have an enlightening conversation on the catalyst effect of building leadership, confidence, and impact. I can surely say for this particular occasion that we have arrived with, that our gather was well. And upon the next time that we meet, may our gather be well. Thank you.
Greetings and welcome to our first Fireside Chat, GatherVerse North America. First of all, I want to say thank you to that power panel that just went. Uh, that was just there. And I also want to thank you to Christopher Lafayette for making this happen and amazing interaction that we had there. So this fireside is just going to be a continuum of such momentum. And just shout out to She Women, She Superhero Engine. I think they're part of them. And we also have here another powerful She Woman. And we're going to talk about the catalyst effect, building leadership, confidence, and impact. Chantal, you call yourself the catalyst. But tell us more. Who is a catalyst? Who are you? And why are you here?
Lynn, it's so good to be here. I love supporting these GatherVerse summits. But to answer your question and to set the stage very quickly, I call myself a catalyst because my clients first called me a catalyst. We'll get into what a catalyst means, but it's much like thought leadership. You know, you can't publicly proclaim yourself to be a thought leader until someone else calls you a thought leader. So bottom line is I inspire change. I help people architect identities that build integrity from the inside out, building confidence, building impact, enabling leadership.
Wow, we're very happy to have you here. And, I looked at your profile and this is what you said. Chantal does not just inspire, she ignites. So what does it mean to ignite rather than inspire? Take us deeper into your world of igniting, catalyzing, and I'm just curious to learn more.
Lynn, I absolutely love words. And whenever it comes to defining a concept, I always like to go back to the root of the words. And for this question, I'm going to start there. If we look at the word inspire, I believe it comes from the Latin inspirare, and I'm never sure if I pronounce it correctly, but nonetheless, the Latin original word means to breathe in, right?
Right.
Now, this implies taking in ideas. Now, knowledge is good, and we do need to impart knowledge. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But so many of us are so swamped with so many good ideas at the moment. We are just breathing them in all the time. The difference lies in the action gap. Now, let's go and look at the word ignite. And for this, I'm going to come back to physics. If we look at the physics definition of ignite, we all know what ignite means. Take a match, light a flame, light the candle, it sets something on fire. But the physics definition of ignite is to take potential energy and turn it into kinetic energy.
That's right, yeah.
And that to me is so powerful because we all have potential within us. But like I say, that the challenge lies in that action gap. The challenge lies in the stories we tell ourselves and the narratives that we construct along the way that are barriers to achieving what we want to achieve.
Yes.
This is why I ignite. I create action as a catalyst.
Wow. I want to also just recommend or just say GatherVerse as well ignites, and having people like you who ignite and inspire leaders. There's so many leaders who are watching right now. And you mentioned something very, very profound, the action part. Everyone has an idea. Everyone has that part, but the action part is where things go haywire, if I may say. So what role does being a catalyst like yourself play in leadership and just daily life, just taking an action of that idea? What role does catalysm bring in?
Lynn, again, I'm going to start with definitions, right? I'm going to start with, let's look at that word.
It's going to be a definition day.
Exactly. This is an English lesson like no other.
Please God.
So let's look at that word catalyst. And again, let's look at it in the physics context. Now, in the physics context, and I wasn't a physicist, so I might get this wrong to the physicists out there, but just bear with me, okay?
Yeah.
When a chemical reaction takes place, apparently there's this I don't know what they call it. There's this mountain that the molecules have to climb before they start transforming.
Yeah.
And it's of course tedious for the molecules.
Mhm.
But when you introduce a catalyst, it speeds up that reaction. So it
Yes.
creates a reaction. It enhances transformation.
Mhm.
Now, again, if we apply that catalyst to our human condition,
Yeah.
we all want transformation. We all want change. We all want to implement these beautiful ideas that we are inspired by with
Mhm.
this action gap. So we need a catalyst. We need someone who's going to come and sprinkle fairy dust,
Yes.
supposedly,
Mhm.
and speed up that reaction. Now, I've spoken about this action gap. And to come back to your question, what role does a catalyst play in leadership and in life? We all have these ideas, but we
Yes.
have barriers.
Yeah.
And the barriers, the things that stop us from going where we need to go, are things like fear, things
Mhm.
like timing. We always say, oh, no, I don't have time for that. Or I don't
Yes.
have the resources. I'd love to start my own business, but I don't have the money. I'm scared to do that. What else? I don't have the confidence to do that. I don't know what to do. So what a catalyst does is a catalyst removes all of those barriers to entry. I will give you permission simply
Mhm.
by sitting with you and talking to you and saying, you know what, you can do this. That's what a catalyst does.
Mhm.
We'll break down those time barriers through looking at your priorities, through identifying what is a priority in life. Because we
Yeah.
all have the same 24 hours in a day. You don't actually not
No.
have time. It's a priority issue.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
We'll build that confidence, and that confidence comes from mentorship. We all need mentorship. So we need someone who's going to walk that road with us and say, I've got you. I believe in you. Go. You can do this.
Mhm.
So this is the role that a catalyst plays in leadership and life. It's that sounding board. It's that person who says, I see you. I've got you. Let's do this. What are the resources we need? What is the timeline? How are we going to structure this? What is step number one? What is that first step we're going to take?
Yes.
That's how
Definitely.
you it. And that's how everyone can catalyze whoever they're working with as leaders.
That is well put. I'm also curious. We've already gotten the flight is taking off. The catalyst is there. Adversity comes in. That is something that has to appear all the way. Adversity comes in. So, how has adversity with your catalyst? How has adversity influenced your confidence and impact, and even for other leaders? We've taken off. Something has hit. Someone loses their confidence. What happened next? What's the impact, and how do you mitigate that?
Lynn, life is full of adversity. We are never going to get rid of adversity. And I always say this to my clients, just because you do the work does not mean life is going to become a bed of roses. So we
Yes.
need to prepare for the adversity. The difference is when we look at borrowed confidence or confidence that is faked, and there's so much of that out there at the moment, right? That kind of confidence falls apart under adversity. Whereas inherent confidence
Mhm.
just shines through when adversity comes. So you asked the question about adversity and how it's impacted my confidence and my impact in life. Lynn, I invented the word adversity, I reckon. I've had a challenging life. I've
Yeah.
had some very interesting experiences. I'm a twice recovered drug addict, and I know that that's a common story.
Mhm.
But the thing is, I recovered both times without help. I made a decision to make my life better. I sorted myself out. And through that, I built this resilience. I wrestled with my own shit for decades before I got to the foundation of my core identity beliefs and I was
Mhm.
able to shift them. I understand adversity. So when someone comes to me and says, I don't have money to pay bread or to buy bread for the children, I understand because I've been there. And we can get through that. Adversity builds resilience, it builds confidence. And what happens when you come from that place, you come from a place of credibility. And I think what my adversity has done for me is it's given me such a strong foundation and I'm able to talk with more authority.
Yes, definitely. I think our time is running out and we could go on. Chantal, you're such a fire power woman that I would love to listen all day. And just give us a quick takeaway. What would you tell people where you are, where you stand, and where your story will? Just one quick takeaway.
One quick takeaway. We all have stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not what happens to you. It's the story you tell yourself that holds you back. So what happens to you is it's raining on your wedding day. The story you tell yourself is, I am not going to like this day. And that will forever taint your experience. So we need to identify the stories we're telling ourselves. We need to look at the narrative.
Yes.
And we need to start shifting that narrative in our core identity.
You know, Chantal, let's see you share Summit on the upcoming GatherVerse Summit. I suspect we have a lot to uncover from you. That was such a powerful Fireside Chat. Over to you, GatherVerse team, and Chantal Asante Sana. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow, and what an amazing fireside panel that was. And that was with Lynn and the amazing Chantal as well, talking about leadership. But now we have an amazing roundtable coming up, talking about deeply human, designing real presence in immersive spaces. If I could ask all panelists on this lovely, big, massive roundtable that we have right now, actually, if we can have ask all panelists to mute their microphones, that'd be much appreciated. And also, welcome, if you just joined us, to GatherVerse North America Tech for Humanity Summit Day 1. We also have another amazing day coming up tomorrow as well. And we also have more roundtables coming up as well, and lots to come too. So, anyway, let's get straight into the roundtable discussion. So what we're going to do is have each individual person quickly introduce themselves. So we'll start with Alison, Larry, and Sean, and then we'll go to Spyro, then Lauren, Casey, Asante, and Catherine. And if you could just keep it very short, maybe 30 seconds to 60 seconds of introducing yourself, and then we'll get straight into the questions. So Alison, please introduce yourself. Who are you, Alison?
Hi, I'm Alison Morano. I'm located in Florida. I am the founder of the Metaverse Chamber of Commerce, and I build immersive spaces that help businesses see what they can do in the new Web3 environment, and introducing gamification and bringing their businesses forward. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, Alison, and thank you for joining us once again. And it's great to see you once again as well. Larry, I think this is the first time I've seen you, so please, well, you might have been here a few times before, who knows, but please do introduce yourself.
I've been around for a while. My name is Larry Rosenthal, Quebec czar, also a vice chair of the LAC Graph group here in LA. I've been around this VR world and the new media world for about 30, 35 years. So maybe I have seen me. And again, as a designer and a creator, producer, I've been, doing all this kind of work and every bit of it for a long time.
Well, thank you for joining us, Larry, and it's great to have such an OG like yourself in the room. So thank you for joining us. Welcome. Sean, great to see you again, my friend. Please tell everyone who you are. I know who you are, but who are you?
How's it going, Russell? Thanks for having me. I'm Sean Mann, CEO and founder of RP1. We created the first 3D browser that will basically enable people to build any content, whether virtual worlds or things for the future of AR, on their own servers by owning their own infrastructure, just like you build your own web infrastructure. And the browser is a neutral company that is able to connect, or I should say technology that connects to your server to anyone in the world, where we've solve 3 technologies. We can scale to unlimited number of users, an unlimited map of the entire world, and you can inject any real-time service through the browser, which is all 3 things that no company has solved.
Well, thank you for joining us, Sean, and that sounds amazing too. Is it Spyro or Spyro? I mean, correct me if I've got your name wrong there, please. But please introduce yourself.
Hello, hopefully you guys hear me. Good day, good afternoon at all the places of the globe. Russell, can you hear me good?
It's a little bit faint, but I mean, we'll give it a go and see how it goes.
All right, yeah, so my name is Spiro Orestes. I'm the CEO and founder of a company located in the Netherlands. It's called GatherVerse, and we're focusing on the digital transformation of a broad variety of sectors: agriculture, healthcare, education, and biotech.
Well, thank you for joining us. And Lauren, I mean, we've got to say hello to you and your dog, of course. Hello!
Hi, I'm Lauren. I am the producer of Virtual World Society and the AI XR podcast, along with being the staff and community manager of Virtual World Society. I got a master's in VR in London, and I studied game design and education over there. Yeah, I'm just excited to be here and continue coming to these panels. They've been a lot of fun.
It's great to have another Brit on the panel as well, by the way. I know we're in North America right now, but it's great to have another local person like myself. So thank you for joining us, Lauren. It's great to see you once again as well, as always, at GatherVerse. Casey, a legend, OG, like, please introduce yourself. I've seen you so many times as well, but it's great to see you again. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey, everyone. I'm Casey Jensen. I'm currently head of client partnerships at company called Zebrar. I've been, I started in ad tech with Google back in the day, opened up one of the early offices for Google. And then the last several years, I've been working in immersive tech, helping brands and organizations use XR, virtual environments, and interactive content to educate and tell more human stories. I mean, that's what we all want to do.
Absolutely, Casey, and thank you for joining us once again. And Asante, I think this might be your first time. So please introduce yourself, and also welcome to GatherVerse Tech for Humanity Summit.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for having me. My name is Asante Asiedu. I'm the founder of UDISA. We are an XR consulting firm supporting educators and facilitators as they begin to implement XR technologies into their classrooms. We gamify curriculum and create pathways for students that are trying to get into workforce training with just interactive games that utilize the technology.
That's great to hear that, by the way, and it's great to also hear that you're a fellow gamer like myself. Who, well, I haven't played for games in like 5 to 10 years. It feels a very long time, but it's great to have you with us, Asante. And last but not least, Catherine, welcome. Good to see you again. Please introduce yourself.
Welcome back, and hello again to the panelists I've shared this with before, and hello to the new ones. I'm Catherine Cavanaugh, go by Katie, founder of Screen 360 TV, which is a learning platform that provides learning motivation through equitable access to a travel-like experience. And we know what travel does for us, gives us perspective, reflection, objectivity. And a lot of young people don't have access to that. So we present that through international films and discussed and co-viewed with international peers, giving learners the recognition that they share the earth with people, with young people growing up and watching the world at the same time they are. And we want to give them an opportunity to meet each other.
100%. And thank you for joining us, Catherine. And last but not least, it's technically myself, but I call Catherine, the last person. But anyway, I will introduce myself. My name's Russell. I am the Director of Partnerships at GatherVerse, and I'm also the co-founder at Just Verify. And Just Verify is building the trust layer infrastructure for AI. And basically our mission in a nutshell is to verify the integrity and trustworthiness of AI models to ensure the responsible adoption so that we can create a future in which everyone can trust AI, hopefully. Right, so let's get straight into the roundtable discussion. So, question 1, and I'm very excited about this because I can't wait to sort of talk about immersive experiences and metaverses and everything like that. This is kind of like my old Web3 sort of background, coming into me now. But anyway, so the question is, in immersive spaces, what entirely new forms of human connection might emerge? So, anything could happen technically. So, do you know what, Sean? I know you're a legend, so I want you to kickstart off this panel. And what are your thoughts on this question?
Well, I guess the hot take, which some may agree or some are really excited about, is AR glasses are going to replace mobile phones. And AR glasses are going to make VR, I believe, more relevant. I think people will be able to put a VR headset on at the comfort of their home and join anybody in the real world instantly. And with AR glasses, it will allow you to walk around the real world and connect to companies and services that are built by them. So imagine if I'm walking down the street and I go to a bank or walk into Walmart, I'll be greeted by Walmart's infrastructure, their servers, and instantly be able to interact with an AI that helps me find the toilet paper in aisle 5, or their employees, how they manage all of their warehousing or moving products. Every single company is going to move from web infrastructure to spatial infrastructure. And I believe AR glasses is going to be one of the biggest transitions that we're going to see over the next handful of years.
100% agree. And obviously we've seen, all of us have seen Meta and obviously Ray-Ban. Ray-Ban, is it? I can't remember the brand name now. But the AI glasses that they have. So we all know that sort of news. That's nothing new, but I do 100% agree with you, Sean. And Larry, let's go over to yourself, and then Alison will head over to you next. What are your thoughts on what entirely new forms of human connection might emerge in this immersive world?
Well, I mean, essentially, immersive spaces are all, they're all fake. They're all mediated spaces. They're things that we create. Mm-hmm. So, when you say what new forms, you're right. I mean, whatever we can imagine. I mean, you can see different forms of even languages. And, what we're doing is fooling our 5 senses in an immersive space. So everything from, I mean, in a sense, sign language was a new form of communication for deaf people. There may be, some sort of haptic-based language that gets created that people communicate from and connect with, that only certain people connect with. There can be all sorts of different, high concept ideas that might form. I mean, this is an imaginative space. There's nothing to really control what's going to happen in it based on what we design into it. That's why I stayed in this so long, because this is this is a pivotal time in the human condition where we're completely able to design our surroundings, which which up until now, I mean, again, my background is design and architecture and things of that nature. They were limited by reality, by the rain, by a hurricane, by nature, by weather change, climate. Yeah. In these spaces, all of that, though being affected by the outside, of course, while inside the space, while tricking yourself to be in an immersive space, it's kind of a wide open gamut that might emerge over the next 50 years.
I mean, who knows what new forms of human connection is going to happen within that space? And we think about let's just and Alison, we're going to go across to you next with this question. If we chuck in AI into the mix, right? And AI is going to create these on-demand immersive experiences that adapts in real time and changes, etc. And you can have NPCs and all this sort of stuff. What new forms of human connection might emerge in this sort of reality, even if AI is, changing things as you literally walk into it, so to speak?
So I'm taking in everything everybody's saying. And by the way, I did try the new Ray-Bans. I was at MetaConnect, and they are very cool.
Okay.
But and it completely brings in the AI form. In my immersive spaces, we are playing with I'm creating NPCs and thinking of the different ways that the NPC itself can engage the player, and that sparks a whole new conversation. Going back to a non kind of technical side of it, the human connection piece that I keep going around is that we've already seen this in the spaces and in the worlds. I'm in RP1 all the time, Sean. And I use Horizon and I use Multiverse and Engage, and I just meet people all day long. Yesterday, someone said something interesting to me. They were traveling overseas with a 12-hour time difference, and they would go in on their daytime now, which was different than their usual daytime, and they met an entirely new global group of people from those that are awake at that time. There are people who come in at all times, but that was an entirely new connection and a new culture. So you can become immersed in all of those things. But going back to the glasses, somebody pointed out that it will actually bring back a connection. We're going to go kind of a little bit in reverse. And the fact that the glasses are now on your eyes, where you look straight forward at it, rather than constantly checking our devices like we do, and breaks connection a lot with people sitting right across from us. This will, I think, bring back a lot of connection that we have lost over the last decades, I suppose.
Okay.
And I thought that was very, very interesting.
Yeah.
These glasses have something called focus built into them that I'm hoping will be in all glasses moving forward. I completely agree. The glasses moving forward also will bring the headset into a much easier way to use them, with just the weight of glasses versus an entire headset to get into VR. But the focus lets you, it drowns out the ambient noise and only talks to the people you are looking at and brings their voice right to you, and then gets wider as more people join the conversation directly in front of you. There's just all types of things. And that's, just listening to this conversation made me think of all of that.
No, that's very interesting. I do. It does make you think, like, is it going to bring us closer? I mean, we look at our mobile phones every day, and then, we're looking at these AR glasses. And then the fact that you said that it brings that human connection is very interesting how that does. And it's like, it's also like, what is the psychology behind that? And I mean, obviously you can kind of go more in depth on that side of things, but it's just very interesting how that works and how the new devices are able to do that. So, so thank you for sharing that, Alison. And I want to bring in Lauren into the conversation, and also we'll head over to Casey, and then Spyro. Spyro, I think we'll head over to you very shortly after we've gone to Lauren and Casey, which is, what ethical measures are needed to make presence in immersive spaces feel authentic and not manipulative or performative? So, we're just talking about AI. We're talking about, AI creating these immersive experiences on demand. Alison saying about how it's bringing more human connection. So, Lauren, what is your thoughts on this particular question when it comes to what ethical measures are needed to make presence in immersive spaces feel more authentic?
Okay, great question. I think for one, having like a human greeter, I think taking just having like the layer of authenticity, and also being transparent. So like laying out the guidelines as you would in any event or movie or experience in real life. So informed consent and just having people be aware of what they're getting into. And then also just being really intentional with your design. Yeah, so I think, just kind of like laying things out. And the most important thing is like transparency here.
100% agree. Do you also think, and I'll just ask a follow-up question to that, Lauren, do you also think like accountability could be a part of that too, in order to stop manipulation or any sort of performative happening in these spaces?
And having like places for people to go if they do have anything that makes them feel uncomfortable, or feedback, and having like feedback forums, and having a place for people to go and talk about their experience and what they would have done differently and what they want to see in future experiences and stuff like that. So having like a place so people can speak about their experiences.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%, Lauren. And Casey, do you agree as well?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's sort of really interesting to me because it's, we didn't do a very good job of it back early days of ad tech and programmatic marketing. We did a really poor job of it. And I think, now we have to, we have the chance to do something right. And I think starting with transparency, consent, and agency, and people should, know what's being tracked and why. And presence shouldn't focus on just extracting engagement. It should invite participation. I think we need to let users feel in control of their story, not directed by it. And, when it starts to feel real, not performative, I think that's where we are. So, yeah.
No, I 100% agree. And, I've seen a comment actually just come in. I'm going to bring up on the screen. Captain Walker, she says, "Are we heading to Ready Player One? I ask this in sincerity. Is this realistically possible? I never thought would have the type of technologies we're seeing today." Yeah, completely agree. And we'll fire that question to Asante in just a minute. But Spyro, I can't get your name right. I do apologize. But what are your thoughts on, from your point of view, what ethical measures are needed to make presence in immersive spaces feel authentic?
Yes, hopefully now you can hear me better because I changed my mic. A small correction, my name is Orestes. My surname is Peru. You can always call me Orestes, Russell.
Orestes, thank you. Appreciate that.
Don't worry. So when we're talking about ethical measures that they have to be taken into consideration, we're talking about all the regulatory framework that it has to be somehow made in coordination with the policy-making authorities, but also with the whole domain of the XR technologies and the next generation of immersive internet, which is like institutions, academic institutions, or other type of institutions. When we're talking about virtual presence of NPCs, there have to be some ethical boundaries in these NPCs in order not to manipulate, let's say, for example, a consumer's decision in a supermarket towards an need or a good that it's not so healthy for him or her. So we're talking about all the ethical guidelines that they have to be taken into place regarding a fair distribution of data for the benefit of mankind. But also in terms if you take into consideration the design phase, the NPCs, they have to be placed in a boundary with the viewer, which will be an AR end user or a VR end user, in order for the end user not to have like the let's say the fear of accepting and having a conversation with a real NPC.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. So in a nutshell, really, like, from the kind of just general sort of just kind of summarizing it up, basically we need to have the right policies in place, align NPCs with human values, and put the right guardrails in place so that they align with the human values in a nutshell and the policies. So if we look at that, and Asante, we're about to bring you into this conversation too. If we look at that, how do we make sure that it's continuously aligned with that, right? What is it that we need to put in place other than, because we talk about guardrails all the time, but I mean, AI is so smart, it could potentially go around those guardrails, right? If you think about it, especially when we're talking about super intelligence and artificial general intelligence, if they're more smarter than the entire mankind, then we could potentially get around these guardrails, including when it comes to fully autonomous. So Asante, and I don't want to kind of dive down that rabbit hole too much, and I'm just going to sort of pivot across a little bit. I'm going to ask Captain Walker's question, which is, are we heading into Ready Player One?
I personally, I don't believe that like Reddit as an end of like where we're headed, that Ready Player One is where the technology is headed. I think there will always be those human interactions, and I think that they're critical for us to really be able to get value out of the technology. I will say that for like ethical frameworks, something that I have been leaning back on are Adinkra symbols, and these are West African philosophy,
Okay.
and they are different aphorisms that have historically kind of guided community within these like Ghanaian specifically, but African communities. I think that there have been a lot of, I would say, like building that's taking place that while incorporating these type of guardrails can support something that is a little bit more ethical when it comes to AI's involvement in immersive spaces. But as far as Ready Player One goes, where everyone is, I say, like living in like kind of those, like little shells and going in. I'm not sure that we're headed to a fully Ready Player One kind of.
Captain Walker, that was a great question, by the way. And Asante, you answered that very well. So thank you for going with me on that journey. It was a bit of a fun side question. Catherine, though, let's bring this back to our main questions now, which is, what are the social responsibilities of creators when designing these immersive spaces? I mean, you think about it, like, this is just being able to create, like recreate your house, or go to some holiday place, destination that you'll never visit, but you want to experience it still. We talk about all these different crazy experiences that we can go to, but what are the social responsibilities of creators when designing these spaces, Catherine?
Right. Thanks for that question. It's very important, of course, to do your user research. And we've been talking the need to do need finding, to understand that there is first acceptance and a need to go to these places with your product, and take your time with the research. I mean, rushing into something is not going to help you create a product that sticks. So really have to be deliberate in your intention to bring something that is useful and helpful to a community. Lauren mentioned moderators. Screen 360 TV uses moderators not only to keep the workflow of our sessions going, but also to make all of those involved feel more comfortable that there is a referee in the room. And,
got you.
Yep.
Yeah. And also, you don't want an AI referee that's kind of biased, like right. all of a sudden, let's say me and Sean, and they're in this, immersive VR world, and Sean's like, and the AI goes, yeah, Sean won. I'm like, I haven't even done nothing yet.
Right, exactly. And the assessments have to be transparent. And so those have to be designed so that audiences can see them both immediately and ongoing on your platform.
That's well said. And Catherine, I couldn't agree with you more. Research, and research.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go on to the next question now, which is, how can immersive spaces balance stimulation and stillness for users? So, Catherine, thank you so much for sharing. And we'll head over to Alison, because I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this, because, I mean, you brought some fantastic points in human connection and the AR glasses bringing us together. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Okay, thank you. So this is an interesting question, because I think a lot to tie into the social responsibility and the ethical concerns, you really want to give users a safe space where they need it. And I think a lot of worlds are built for excitement right now. And you can go into things without knowing whether the person coming in is going to have fear or some sort of response to what you've built without being able to find a safe space. So you want to make sure there are different levels of things. I was actually just thinking, I have a section in my chamber website, in my chamber world in Horizon. I also have other worlds, but the bigger one that I have, something that's kind of like stimulating, is that there's a roller coaster. And it's very easy right now to fall out of this roller coaster up in space. And I always warn people, because it's really fun, but I like to make sure that people feel safe while they're in there. I've also got areas where you can go and you can read and you can visit other worlds. So you really do have to find that balance, especially if you've got a really large world like I've created. There are smaller game worlds where people know right away going in. And I've noticed that different apps create buttons now, which I think are really important for you to be able to get into a privacy bubble, or to be able to go immediately into pause, and all of this goes to stimulation and stillness. So you want to know beforehand to read a good description, but you also have to balance, like the question says, to be able to have people who come in and are overwhelmed, a way to change the sound and a way to be able to participate or to get out of it. I think that's the biggest thing about stimulation and stillness, is giving the user the choice to balance their own environment for themselves, so that even if something you're in there playing is very stimulating and crazy, you need a way to back out of it pretty easily. As opposed to even having an area that is very, very quiet away from it.
That is so. Sorry, continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's very interesting, Alison, and it just makes me think about if we wear Meta's glasses and Ray-Bans, right? How are we supposed to do that when we get out of that, and how are we supposed to put those sort of right safety protocols in place, so to speak, to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, I'm wondering, when you said that, I thought of my car, where if it thinks that I'm drifting a little bit, it'll go, oh, is it time to take a break? Or do you need coffee? My car actually asks me that if it thinks that I've been staring forward too long, or haven't moved or something when I'm driving really far. Maybe the glasses will say, maybe you need a break from whatever it is that you're doing around other people.
That's very interesting. But anyway, thank you for sharing, Alison. That's the most funniest thing that I've heard so far. But anyway, Larry and Lauren will head over to you both next. I like to mix things up a little bit, so we'll just be heading over to you in just a second. But before we do that, I did see this comment earlier, which I just want to bring up. This is from Celestia. She says, I think designing immersive spaces so that they feel cozy when you come in, not too vast to get lost in, ensuring users are not being bombarded by too many advertisements. So that's what she said on that. So, Larry, let's start with you. How should we think about memory and identity when experiences feel real but exist digitally?
Well, I mean, these are, memory and identity are the things that are coming in with you. And, these, again, are designed interfaces. So they, and as I said, they can feel real. That's what we've been, that's what all our media has been moving to over the last 100 years is, is simulating more and more realistic images, so that, when the first movies came out, people were sitting there watching the train come at them and were all frightened, thinking the train was going to come off the screen because they'd never seen a two-dimensional projected movie large. And of course, radio and television these things have been mediating us and creating the world that we live in, for better or worse, for a long time. Obviously, memory and identity in the age of the internet, this is one of the things that the people are finally waking up to as what's been lost so quickly. Is that, again, I go, just myself, I go back 40 years almost, it seems, digitally, and most of that work is lost. Most of that memory that's on the internet doesn't find it anymore, because we chose, and this is something which think about, you mentioned Google, we chose relevancy over value. in our search engine, so that even though maybe the greatest, the greatest painting or the greatest catastrophe that was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, doesn't show up very much on Google because it's not as popular as Donald Trump or a pop singer or whoever it is that's getting all the the trending of the moment. So that's something to think about. I mean, I'll just say that these if this is the next internet and it's starting again, how do we then look to almost like the Wayback Machine? The Wayback Machine didn't even have and still doesn't have immersive content on it. It takes GIFs and text, maybe some Flash, maybe some PDF, but there's no history to the digital on the internet, truly. So that's something we're gonna have to think about as we move forward now into be it a 3D web, Sean's pushing, or a metaverse, whatever name we call it. But if it's this next generation of an internet that we're building.
I mean, you bring out some very very wide, interesting points there. I mean, there's so much I can jump onto. I will say my personal interesting part in everything that you said was when you'd go to the cinema, you'd watch a film, you'd get all that experience, which is obviously an immersive experience, so to speak, right? Because you've got speakers all around, you're watching the screen, etc. Then they have the 3D version when the 3D version first come out, and you're wearing these 3D glasses, and they come on the screen, you're like, whoa, right? And then the next step now is we're at these VR glasses now, AR and XR glasses, or in a nutshell, and you go into when you're wearing these glasses and you go into that experience, and it's even more immersive now, like because it's literally right in front of your eyes, and you're taken around everywhere you go. So, Lauren, let's bring you into this discussion. How should we think about memory and identity when experiences feel real but exist digitally? Like, what is your personal thoughts? Being educated from London and from the UK.
Yeah. Okay. So because of these experiences being so real, our minds are remembering the virtual experiences as real. So that basically puts the designer as a memory maker. So whatever they're creating for the user to see, the user's going to take away. So that makes it, as a designer, it's not just an ethical role, it's a creative role now. So you have a lot of power here. And I think something that's really important is the memory stewardship. So the designers hold the responsibility for the emotional imprint that they're leaving on the user whenever they walk away. So it's important to have like a full experience. So like the beginning, having a message, having transitions, and an ending with a meaning. So something that somebody can walk away and be like, okay, this is what I got from this experience. Also just like debriefing moments, kind of like we were talking about earlier, like a space where they can go and decompress and make it their own. So with immersive experiences, I think it's really important and powerful. As this tool, you can have like multiple different endings. So just thinking of all the different outcomes and having different like spaces and reflection questions for the user, kind of how I mentioned earlier, you can have like response forms. So I think that's something that's really powerful and allowing the user to kind of like wrap their head around everything that is happening and the message of the overall experience.
No, I was going to say, Lauren, that's you bring up some very good points. And when I think about identity and memory, and basically like my identity in this virtual world and virtual space, and having my memories in there, I want to be able to work with AI to create those memories, put them together on demand, so that basically, if I'm thinking about something, I should be on demand that it can create that world. So, for example, if I'm thinking, I want to be, not that I would go there, but I want to be in the middle of the Amazon forest, right? I wouldn't personally go there, to be honest. But, if you're in the middle of Amazon forest, you want to be able to have that experience on demand. And then you want to switch, let's say, to the Sahara Desert, right? You should be able to just jump there instantly and have those experiences, but also be able to bring your identity with you. And then, also when we talk about extended memory, especially when it comes to AI, the extended memory of AI is growing every single day. ChatGPT has very good extended memory, right? When it comes to, agentics and also, GPT-5 and GPT-4, etc. But they're extending their memory all the time. So as we extend this memory, these immersive experiences are going to become better and better and better. It's going to remember exactly what you're going to do. It's going to make these experiences even better. And then when we're talking about these VR and AR experiences, or wearing the glasses, or being in these immersive worlds, right? I think that's where it's really going to come to life, so to speak, with everything that we're building. And it's not Roblox or Fortnite, which people think anymore, right? Because that's what people think when they talk about metaverse. They think, oh, Roblox. It's more than that, of course. But to your point, Lauren, the point I'm getting at is when it comes to memory identity, it's important that we have that and we are able to integrate that. And I completely agree with everything that you're saying. So thank you so much for sharing, Lauren. That was a bit long-winded, but I just kind of wanted to add my 2 cents into there, so to speak. And Sean, I'm always curious, I'm always curious from your point of view, Sean, because you work in, the VR, XR, AR industry day in, day out. You're building all different immersive experiences. You see from your customers, what their feedback is and everything that's, being experienced. We're in the modern day time now, but what is like the next step, as in what roles do smell, touch, subtle body cues sort of thing play in creating these deep presences, and how well can we make these immersive technologies replicate all that? Like, can we have robot hands where I can feel your touch, or what is it that we can do to add these other parts to this experience?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to go too deep because I think a lot of this stuff is way too abstract. So we start going into, robotic hands and things. I think that's a whole layer beyond. Let's get to the point where we can just interact with each other as close to reality as possible. And I think
Agreed.
having the visual cues. So if you think of simple technologies and where we're going, I think businesses and people want to connect as close to reality as possible. And a lot of people are like, well, we don't want Ready Player One. And I think Ready Player One was this big game. But in reality, we still spend 7 on average hours a day on the internet, right?
That's
and some
crazy.
people even as high as 10 hours. So the question is, we're going to replace that with something, right? Because the reason why we spend that much time is because we're not around real people. It's not that we don't want to be around people, but they're spread around all over the world, different offices, different family members, everything imaginable. And these technologies are going to allow us to basically have someone join me in the real world instantly and be able to interact with them. But I still want to have that level of presence where I can see their facial expressions. Seeing a very cold or dystopian kind of avatar does not necessarily give you that safe feeling that I'm with an actual human being and I can actually interact with them the same way that we feel and are with each other in real life. So when we have a conversation in real life, I can see your expressions. I can see the way you nod. I can see your nonverbals and the things that really help that warmth or that interaction between individuals. And that allows you to feel, is this person safe? Is it someone I want to enjoy a conversation with? Do I trust them? There's all these things that these expressions invoke inside naturally in human expression. And I think when you think of the future of AR glasses, having someone that is remote join you and be able to see those facial expressions, I think are a non-negotiable. I think these are things that we need to really impact our relationships, whether it's work or personal or education. It really doesn't matter. And so I think that's probably the next biggest step, is really bring in those feature sets that enable us to have those kind of visual things that we are used to in real life. And one thing I kind of want to add also is I think a lot of people feel like the idea of the metaverse or Ready Player One is going to replace real life. And I think it's really supposed to augment real life. And what I mean by that is that we're always going to choose in-person relationships or experiences. I always want to be with somebody, but if I can't have that, do I want to stare at a 2D thing, or do I want to be someone actually join me in my visual experience and get that as close to reality 2.0 that we can get? And I think that's what XR is truly for. It's not really for us to really leave the real world. And so I want to make sure that's kind of understood.
Celeste Leah says 100 to what you were just saying there. Sean.
Thanks, Celeste. I like Celeste. Celeste is the bomb. Thanks, Celeste.
But yeah, I do agree as well. The combination of the physical world and the digital world coming together into one. Completely agree with you. And when you put over the glasses and you have like the second sort of reality, as you're saying, Sean. 100% agree.
Well, and also just there's a big difference between VR and AR, right? So VR is when I'm in my house and I want to go somewhere that I can't be there. So obviously I need VR because it needs to show me the entire environment. And eventually those big clunky things will eventually be what are called VR glasses. They're going to be as small as glasses that just have a covering that enabled me to be immersed because I need to block the lighting. But AR is for walking around in the real world. And so I'm able to see through the glasses, just like your phone. But the funny thing is we're all going to laugh when people walk around with their phone trying to do this in the real world, staring at this tiny little 6-inch screen versus AR glasses allows me to see the entire thing in front of me with some type of things that assist, whether it's seeing people or information. And so it's this is going to be terrible when we have the metaverse. XR devices are going to win over any flat 2D websites. 2D devices that were made for 2D websites.
So to Sean's point, we're running out of time. So what I want to do is, because we've only got 4 or 5 minutes left, so what I want to do is I want to go around each individual person, and I want to get 30 seconds or less from your thoughts. And also we'll start with you, Catherine, and then work our way backwards so that we can get everyone's opinion and thoughts. Catherine, and this is a question for everybody, so you might want to think of your answer ahead of time. But Catherine, what would you like to see in the future when it comes to this interactive virtual world? Like, what is one thing that you would like to see in the future come, I guess, reality, so to speak?
I'd like to see what Screen 360 TV is doing be activated through 3 hubs in the world, where we have a moderated session engaging the 8-hour time zone or clock, 8-hour clock from those 3 locations, and a moderator engaging remote classrooms to watch a film together. And to Sean's point, bringing them as close together as physically together. So there's no glasses, no goggles, just enjoying that empathetic exchange that the cinema gives us now. So this is what I would like to see in the future.
That's 100% true, and thank you for sharing that. Catherine, Asante, same question to you. What's one thing that you would like to see in the future when it comes to these immersive worlds for yourself?
Yeah, I would like to see real-time analysis for skill building. I think it would be great, especially for, developing nations and, just, again, upskilling across the board for, these tools to be able to, I want to learn, how to change a tire, how to, become an optic technician. And you can put that on and it will walk you through that process in a way that is organic and that is, very natural for all those young folks who are growing up. So,
Casey, same question for yourself, and thank you for sharing, Asante. One thing that you would like to see in the future for these immersive worlds?
I think I'm most excited about just being able to be highly personalized and be able to understand where I am in that moment and what I want to be able to see or experience, whether that's tied into wearables with AI to be able to understand, hey, I just ran a mile and my heartbeat's really high and I want to be able to relax, or be able to understand other areas that I'm coming from right now. With AI right now, every morning when I walk my dog, I talk to ChatGPT and I'm talking about my day. And it amazes me that, the other day it said, Casey, what's wrong? You don't seem like your normal self. How are you feeling today? You seem a little bit down. And I was just stressed about something. And it was like, it was really sort of interesting, a little scary, but it was interesting to me that it understood that. And I think bringing those type of things into these worlds to personalize the experience and how they personalize it is really cool. But I think my biggest thing is just being able to use these technologies to, especially these days in our world, being able to bring the world closer together, more empathy, more connection, and understanding. I think that's where we can really utilize these technologies to solve big problems right now, is if we can get people access to be able to start experiencing each other and understanding how how we're not that different.
Completely agree. Casey, and also Salvation even agrees. It says great perspective there to you, Casey. So Salvation agrees with what you're saying. Lauren, please, what is one thing that you would like to see in the future with these immersive worlds, immersive experiences? Like, what's one thing that you would like to see? And then we'll head over to Orestes, and then we'll go to Sean, Larry, and then Alison.
I want to see a world that just has immersive technology with no friction. So like a lot of kind of like what Sean's creating, where you can just like click a link and hop into it and everybody can be in the same space. Like I really like the idea of I feel like a lot of times with all these headsets and different platforms, like there's just a lot of like things being broken because people are like frustrated because they have to download an app and stuff like that. So I just want it to be really easy to use, and I want everyone to have it. I think that's going to be a really exciting time. And I also think it'll empower people to create their own experiences.
I love that, Lauren. So very simple, straight to the point. Like, I just love it. Honestly, it's great, Lauren. Thank you. Orestes, what is your one thing that you would like to see?
Yes, to begin with, the first immersive world that I was introduced was the real world, as I went outside of the tummy of my mother. So I would like to wish, first of all, in this world, some peace, health, and happiness that can translate either from the boundaries perspective of sustainability into the digital world, so that they can help us evolve as human beings and connect and recreate boundaries that they don't have, even the spatial boundaries. Ethical usage and deployment of these technologies for bettering mankind. And yeah, let's go.
Captain Walker agrees. Yes, Orestes, peace, health, and happiness. Also, Celeste even agrees as well. Larry, Sean, Alison, please keep it short because we literally run over time right now. So quickly, one thing that you would like to see in the future. Quickly, Larry.
More media education that's dealing with, the overlap of real life civics and virtual life civics. And because we certainly don't have enough of that at this moment, and we haven't had enough of it for the last 60 years either. So we need to deal with media education. So while we're building and creating fantasies, we're trying to ground them in a reality that we've already experienced.
Sean, what are your thoughts? One thing from yourself, I mean.
Yep, an open ecosystem. I mean, we have amazing people all over the world that have contributed to the World Wide Web. And if we're stuck in a walled garden system, a lot of people will not be able to contribute both tools and experiences. And an open ecosystem allows us to all participate, which is the power of the browser.
Sean, love that. And Alison, one thing from yourself, and then we'll have to jump off.
I absolutely agree with everything that's been said here, especially frictionless. What I do not want to see and really worries me is a bombardment of advertisements and commercialism. So that is what I'm hoping I don't see. But had a great time.
Thank you very much, Alison. Thank you to all the panelists. Please give them a follow, check them out on LinkedIn, connect with them, etc. Thank you to everybody. Up next, we also have another roundtable discussion, which we're going to be talking about, ways of building innovation that serves everyone. So we'll have another roundtable discussion then. And then we also have coming up next, our next session, which is AR and Eco Impact, linking immersive tech with climate action. That's it from me. Thank you, panelists, and I will see you very shortly. Goodbye.
Thanks, Russell. Bye-bye.
Welcome all, and thank you so much for joining me today on this fascinating topic of extended reality and eco-impact, linking immersive tech with climate action. Gratitude to the GatherVerse team for featuring me again today and all the visionary work that they are accomplishing by bringing us together for these convergences of thought and intention. So firstly, I would like to pay respect to this beautiful, miraculous planet that is giving us our very life force and supporting us right now and allowing us to even have this experience. So even though the subject of technology that we work with and wield in many ways is a complete antithesis of nature, we are still organic beings on a living planet. So I will say that after going through the terror of being forced to evacuate my home during the recent 2025 LA wildfires, I felt shaken into an even more shocking awareness of the severity of climate change. I felt like I really needed to be doing way more on going deeper and understanding one of my main industries and examine its environmental impact and help to educate others. So I've been doing independent research, collecting some of this info, and I've started publicly presenting around this unique topic. So my name is Celeste Lear. I'm an immersive experience designer, producer. Some of you know me as DJ Celeste. I'm the founder of Boutique XR, and I've been working with spatial computing technology like virtual reality, augmented reality, holoportation, volumetric capture for the last 7 years, mainly in the virtual events production and entertainment, music, and filmmaking spaces here in Los Angeles. I'm also an environmental activist. I've always been, and I've been working with one of the official arts partners of the United Nations since 2015, and our team has been producing experiences using spatial metaverse tech and augmented reality for education and sparking virtual activism around the Sustainable Development Goals. Let's see. So the main gist that I would like for you to walk away from today with this presentation is virtualization. And the quote, "If we are to get to net zero CO2 emissions, we will need to create more virtual objects and fewer physical objects," by my friend Doug. The case study I like to start with is the Spacetop augmented reality laptop. And I chose this particular product feature because it represents the concept of virtualization in a really cool way. I first saw this at the AWE conference 2 years ago, and it stood out as the world's first AR laptop that replaces traditional physical multi-screen setup with a virtual workspace viewed through the AR glasses. And by virtualizing the monitor, the Spacetop reduces material use, e-waste, shipping emissions, and it's a strong example of how immersive tech dematerializes to decarbonize the hardware and minimizes tech clutter and shrinks our environmental footprint. So with the same concept, the essential term digital twinning, it's the virtual replicas of real world systems that enable industries to simulate, monitor, and optimize performance without environmental costs of trial and error in physical space. And digital twinning is becoming very essential tech in several high environmental impact industries, especially those that are dealing with complex systems and high value assets and some sustainability goals. So in manufacturing, aerospace and defense, automotive, smart cities, energy, healthcare, shipping, architecture, it's great. And everyone should be really paying attention to this technology. It's incredible, you guys. I can't hype it up enough. Another application for XR that's really near and dear to my heart is virtual production. And I've worked in Hollywood on a couple movies and projects. VP is rapidly reshaping how stories are told in Hollywood. It's also lending to efficiency in resulting carbon reductions by a typical production team. It replaces emissions-heavy location shoots, minimizes waste, uses real-time digital tools, including VR, which is mainly Unreal Engine. And it's been proven to reduce emissions by a typical production team by up to 50%. So that's great. It's reducing crew travel, generator use, and I can go on and on. It's really exciting, but these are like some of the topics that I'm encouraging you all to follow. I only have 5 minutes, so I need to cut it short, but I'm Celeste Lear, and thanks for hearing me today. Thanks to GatherVerse. Ciao.
Hello and welcome to day one of Tech for Humanity Summit, GatherVerse North America. And I'm happy to be here with another roundtable discussion. And I'm very excited for this one because on this roundtable discussion, we're going to be talking about ways of building innovation that serves everyone. So completely agree with that 110%. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick introduction from each of ourselves. We'll start with Luaskia, is that correct? I just want to make sure.
It's Luaska.
Luaska, thank you very much. So we'll start with Luaska, Ian, Mailu, Cedric, and Sheila. So Luaska, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luaska Nonan. I am the CEO and founder of Equity Principal Consulting. I am a workplace consultant and an AI GP professional.
Thank you for joining us, Luaska, and I love the very straight to the point, sharp introduction. Straight, awesome. Ian, please introduce yourself and welcome back. Good to see you again.
Hello, this is Ian. It's the founder of Howler Hybrid Online Live. I've been trying to use AI for my education model, and my students have been relying on AI and me, but they are not the one who always use AI. I'm the one, and then they must use their brain through my guidance. And then many students and their parents don't know how to utilize AI for their education. So myself and my co-workers are the ones who are trying to help them with their the full utilization of AI. So today I'm very excited to be part of this again.
Ian, pleasure having you with us, and thank you very much. Mailu, we were going to head over to you next before the order got disturbed, so please introduce yourself.
Amazing. Thank you, Russell. My name is Mai. My first name is Mai. Lou is my last name. And I serve as the Chief Impact Officer and one of the co-founders of LifeSpark Labs. We are a video game platform that helps you figure out your career path and builds the skills that employers are looking for. And that's driven by my background as an organizational psychologist. I've been in the work for about 16 years, personally coached over 500 people in my life. I'm an HR executive. And through all those experiences, I've been able to impact over 16 million people through the innovations that I've been building over the last 16 years. And so I'm really excited to share about how we can build tech that is serving everybody and not just for a select few. So excited for this badass panel and badass conversation.
And badass you too. Thank you for joining us, Mai. And Cedric, over to you. Please introduce yourself and welcome to GatherVerse.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Cedric Scott Jr. First and foremost, I'm a very proud husband and father, and I work in the education space, cross sections of education technology. I'm the creator of an initiative called STEM 1000 under the umbrella of I Am the Algorithm. So really supporting our youth, thinking about their access in terms of STEM experiences and resources, and also an author aligned to, of course, I have them here, 2 primary books, which also infuse technology as far as AI and different implementation, looking into the future of work and workforce development.
Thank you for joining us, Cedric, and also thank you for what you do as well in terms of teaching the youth and the kids. And last but not least, Carlos has joined us. So welcome, Carlos. Please introduce yourself and welcome to GatherVerse.
Thank you. I'm Carlos Gladden, CEO and founder of 360 Breeze Group. We're a business process management firm in the domain of technology and instruction systems. So we kind of focus on a process of how you use certain tools and systems so we maintain value, even sustainability-wise. And I've been in business for probably more than 10 years. Business process management about 4 years primarily in the system side of even looking at AI and every part of the system behind the system, so we understand the requirements, the tools needed, and what we need to do to make it happen, and actually put the proper steps in place to maintain the value of what we use directly. And so, like I said, we had different resources like different guides, tools that business can use, even AI, certain things like that to help them actually make sure they can actually navigate more properly, and and actually save money at the same time instead of spending so much.
Well, Carlos, thank you for joining us today. And sorry, I forgot about the amazing Sheila. So Sheila, please introduce yourself and welcome.
Hello, everyone.
My name is Sheila Fasil. My pronouns are she, her. For those who are visually impaired, I'm wearing a blue blazer, orange hoops, and I have locks and brown skin. I am the founder of Listen First. We are a voice-first multilingual platform that talks to people about their healthcare experience and then use AI and human experts to turn that into insights to drive product-patient fit. My background is in healthcare as an innovation specialist, strategist, and operator, and I now work as a social change futurist.
Incredible, and I appreciate you joining us, Sheila. And I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Russell. I am the Director of Partnerships at GatherVerse. I'm also the co-founder of Just Verify, and we're building the trust layer infrastructure for AI. And our mission is to verify the integrity and trustworthiness of AI models to ensure the responsible adoption across the world and across all industries too. And our vision is to create a future in which everyone can trust AI. So that is it for all the introductions. Now let's get straight into the roundtable discussions, because I'm not going to lie, this was actually one of my favorite things I was looking forward to today. So question one, what does it mean to design accessible innovation that truly serves everyone? Now, we're not going to go in no particular order because I like to mix things up a bit. So Mai will head over to you, and we'll go over to Ian as well after. So Mai and Ian will head over to you on this question. So Mai, please kick us off.
Amazing. Thanks, Russell. Keeping us all on our toes.
Yes.
So I would say that the question around making it, what does it mean to be design accessible innovation and making it serve everyone? It includes thinking about it from the very beginning of the inception of the product. And you think about who your ideal personas are, who are the types of individuals that you're designing for, and what are their needs, what do they say, what do they what do they want, and how does their lived experience look like from the things around that they hold in their hand physically, when the things that they see on the day-to-day, and the access that they have to information and the access they have to technology. All of that taken into consideration about how they access your product, how they use your product, how they get outcomes from your product, and thinking about that from the very, very beginning, not as an addendum after the fact or retrofitting that. Because that is felt by your users and felt by your consumers, because if it doesn't feel integrated into the experience, that's going to be something that's reflected in the customer retention or lack thereof. So examples of that includes when you think about who your ideal customer persona is. You have to start with a small population to get started, so we can't boil the ocean. Think about in your product roadmap, when will you then intentionally include larger scopes of work? When will you actually include the bigger population beyond that initial customer persona, that ideal customer persona, and being intentional about that growth strategy and your product roadmap? Because if you don't think about that intentionally, it, like I said earlier, becomes an after the fact experience, and that's reflected in your product. So thinking about that with the end in mind, if the goal at the end is to have this be an inclusive product and something that is better for humanity, that's the end goal. Working with that with the end in mind, and taking those small initial steps to get to that end goal is really critical from your strategy all the way through your execution, because it's easy to lose sight of that, because we get pulled in so many different directions of, well, this will monetize better, well, this will do this better, and this group wants this or this. So how to navigate all that feedback and be intentional about it and thoughtful about it is really, really what it means when what that question means to me, Russell.
No, I completely agree. UX UI is fundamental to the user experience, but I will also chuck into that. I think having accessibility when it comes to open source models and AI, when we're talking about small language models as well, and also large language models, I think we should be able to have access to both of them when it comes to open source. And also, I think you should also have personalized, or personal device, sort of AI on your phone directly, as well as, well, obviously not connected to the cloud, but you can have your own personal ones, but also large language models that are also connected to the cloud, right? So I think you should be able to have both, and having both of those accessible and both of that open source, I think that'll be really important as well, because having accessibility when it comes to AI is also just as fundamental as what you're talking about when it comes to the UX UI side, and making sure that we lower the barrier for that for people to be onboarded when it comes to AI. So 100% agree with what you're saying, Mai, and thank you for sharing that with us today.
Sure.
Ian, please tell us your thoughts on what does it mean to design accessible innovation that truly serves everyone?
Okay, I would like to talk about this from the perspective of an educator. In the digital world, in this AI era, there are many different types of innovative educational tools, but in many senses, that doesn't mean anything because many people don't know about it. They don't know how to use it. So I think designing accessible innovation that truly serves everyone means this innovation should be provided with a proper marketing tool or marketing method. The students and parents and the educators must be well aware of these innovations. And so without being fully aware of these technologies, like that doesn't mean anything. Like the fact that technologies exist doesn't mean anything at all. So actually, that's what I'm struggling actually at the moment. I think I have developed a very efficient hyper-learning education model, but many people are not well aware of the value, and they don't trust it because they have never tried that before. So it is really, really hard for me to persuade them, and even it takes so long, and it takes a lot of effort in attracting customers like parents and students. So I think so like a marketing, like sort of like a buzz or viral effect should be entailed with the accessible innovation that truly serves everyone. That's the most important part, I think, in terms of education.
No, I agree. Like we need to have like lower the barrier to entry when it comes to educational side, and being able to have people on board. Because when they say use ChatGPT, someone who knows nothing about it, they're like, well, how do I use ChatGPT? Like, what exactly do I put in there? Do I put a question in there like Google, or like do I put a sentence in there in a certain way? And so I completely agree with what you're saying, Ian. And Carlos, let's bring you into this conversation as well, because obviously we've discussed a couple of points here, UX, UI. Obviously, Ian saying about the education side. What are your thoughts from your perspective when it comes to the 360 degrees group angle, for example?
My approach is first, it's the human side of technology. So it's how we use technology. Most times in the tech space, we always build systems without the human actual information, right? Somebody comes, they see something, they have no idea, they put it out there, and then it doesn't go well because you never got the human input. You never got the actual human input. And so I believe that when we design systems and accessible innovation for everybody else, we first had to take the people approach, ask people questions and answer and get actual people data. To me, like even AI, we look at AI and say AI is a smart machine. But if you look at the brain itself, of the human body itself, it's over trillions of power of neurons and so many electricity going through the body, that brain and parts of the body, that's more powerful than the AI by itself. And so we have to look at the human aspect of what the needs are, what the growth are, what the potentials are, why they need it, why they want to use it. And I think it's important that we found out why people need certain things and why they use it before we start building it, and then build a model around them to bring the value. And I believe that's what we need to do, is look at the human component first, and then add the process to it and build it for them. Then see how they like it and make it life easier. But sometimes we build technology thinking we build it based on our own ideology, not realizing that if you're going to use it, that's fine, but if somebody else is going to use it, build it towards who's going to use it directly and not you. And that's me keeping the human aspect always on the forefront of all technology systems and AI and design directly, so we understand why we're building it. And then from there, I believe that's what will help us constantly build accessibility of innovation.
100% agree with you, Carlos. Always has to align with human values. 110% agree with that. And also, I think it comes down to trust as well. People being able to trust that this AI is aligned with human values before they even use it. So let's go on to the next question now, though, which is, can innovation be inclusive without rethinking who innovates and funds it? So we'll go to Sheila, and then we'll go to Liaska. So no, please. Sorry. Sheila, over to you.
Sure. I was actually hoping not to get this question, but
okay.
The only reason is, we have a lot of conversations around, and I'm in the healthcare space, around like who's at the table and who's innovating, and representation being very important. I do think that we are at a point in history where we're beyond the place where representation alone is going to fix the problem. Because what often happens is even individuals of different identities and cultures, when we come to the table, we're following the same playbook. So we're still not ending up with true innovation and accessibility because people are not showing up as their full selves, or they're competing for visibility or resources. So we're following the playbook, right? So I think what we need now is less about thinking about inclusion and just in terms of who's in the table, but building and power into the systems of innovation. And I think in the age of AI, what that really means is, how do we think about data? Data is the new oil. We know that, right? That's what feeds AI, trains AI, gives it direction and objective and a soul, so to speak, right?
100%.
So we've amassed lots of publicly available data. Once that runs out, which we're probably already there, people's data is going to become the new product. So I think we're really at a stage where we really need to be talking about data sovereignty, right? Where people are able to retain ownership of their data as if it's their pinky, right? And are compensated for it, consent for it, and have full visibility into how their data is being used. And if we're going to think about inclusivity, particularly in the data space, I think we need to start by talking about making sure that we're making room for the most vulnerable. And sometimes when we talk about the space of diversity and inclusion, we're talking about a specific race of people, but sometimes the most vulnerable person shows up as a child, right? Or someone with a specific condition. It's not always in these buckets that we're used to classifying people. So we have to come with new definitions of how we think about inclusivity in this space.
That's that is mind blowing, I must admit. And I think it's important to do that 100%. You should be, I saw a study recently saying about in healthcare, particularly Sheila, and it was saying about basically how when it comes to women's healthcare, because AI has been trained so much on the men's health side of things, women's health side of things when it comes to the healthcare is really lacking, right? And I saw that study and I read it and I was like, that's just crazy, like how it's just how it's been trained when it's like you're saying about the data and everything. So I completely agree with you. We have to not necessarily retrain, but add more into there to be able to have it learn the women's side of things so that it is very neutral, right? So it can do both side of things, both men and women, when it comes to healthcare, for example. So I just thought that was a very interesting study and read that I read. And I just thought it was very relevant to what you're saying. So so let's go on to
Luaskin. We're going to go on to
Luaskin.
Okay. So answering that question, there's no way that we can truly innovate if we're intending to do so with a vision for inclusivity. There's no way to do it without really rethinking of who the innovators are and who's funding it, especially if those are the decision makers that are going to be creating these tools and considering the use cases and considering who's considered as part of the individuals that are going to be benefiting from these tools or who may be utilizing these tools. You have to have a way in which to initiate the process from a perspective of, well, if inclusion is the goal, to many of the things that people have said, you've got to take a step back, be intentional, and really understand, well, how do we achieve this goal? If those that are funding these initiatives are going to be the decision makers and are not intending to have an inclusive perspective, then you're never going to get to true innovation, right?
100%.
We've seen a lot of innovative tools, and we've all experienced innovation in our lifetime, but we've also seen the ways in which those innovative tools have just replicated inequitable systems, right? That's all that we've done. To the point that you just mentioned, Russell, regarding the AI systems that have been utilized in the health space, trained on data and modeling on primarily male human anatomy and healthcare, and not that of women.
100%.
That's perpetuating an inequitable system, right? And so I challenge the thought that is true innovation when you are missing large swaths of people and identity groups.
100% agree, and thank you, Loaskan, for that. There we go. See, double thumbs. At least I got it right once in 5. You know, that's not too bad. I'll take it. Cedric, what is your thoughts on this? Can innovation be inclusive without rethinking who innovates and funds it?
No, I'd be in agreement in saying that. No, not necessarily. And thinking, I think something that Sheila mentioned was more so thinking about the most vulnerable, right? And Luaska mentioned like the really thinking about equity, and we can point to cases in history and in time where we've seen, equity happen like almost on accident. So one thing I want to shout out and highlight was actually brought to my attention by a good friend of mine by the name of Tiffany Martin, who happens to be blind and is a Black woman, runs a company called Visiotech, and pointed out to me the curb cut effect. And I'd never necessarily heard the topic or subject matter. And it basically just talks about how we all use the curb cut, right? We all use that. But the reasoning behind it was, of course, for accessibility, right? I don't necessarily use that, but I benefit from it, as does a mother who is, or a father, right? Shout out to me, pushing a stroller, right, with their young child in it, or the elderly. So again, thinking about instances where we can already point to things that have already occurred in time and space and say, okay, that happened, right? And it supports far more people than it was maybe intended to. So how do you reverse engineer that with intentionality to say, okay, well, how do we replicate the curb cut effect for other things? And then the last thing I would like to really, I think, cast out too is the acknowledgement that innovation and I think invention often become kind of interchanged in people's verbiage and language, especially when it comes to technology. And again, like it doesn't necessarily have to be something completely brand new, this rocket ship that is going to take us to wherever. It can be really practical things like a slope in the curb that could really ultimately support and help a lot of people. But thinking about implementation wise for us, of course, for me in education, et cetera, but also really broader scale and spectrum in technology, which I think, again, back to one of Sheila's points, goes into thinking, well, how are we being respectful and responsible with things like data?
100%. And actually, talking about data, I've just got a quick comment here. Captain Walker says data is the new oil for sure, Sheila. So she 100% agrees with what you're saying. And, Cedric, you bring up some good points there, because even Maya and Ian were saying about when it comes to the UX UI side, when it comes to the educational aspects, when it comes to accessibility side, that also plays into the part of what you're talking about as well. So I think that's very insightful what you're sharing there, Cedric. So let's go on to the next question now, which is inclusivity and accessibility, so this is what I was talking about before, a moral obligation or a key metric for innovation and success? So I think this is very insightful, and that may be potentially a key metric that could be measured. But what do you think on this subject matter? Do you believe that this is correct, or is it just a moral obligation, or is it a key metric? Like, what is it?
I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I think that the way to innovate successfully is to be inclusive and accessible. And so I think oftentimes there's this binary, this polarization that's brought up for, it grabs attention, it gets you emotional, it gets you in a defensive positioning. But I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. They belong together. And so being able to be have your product be used by more people than you thought, I'm not sure why that would be a bad thing. So I'm curious why you would not want to have more people accessing and using your products or your services, whether you're education, whether you have a technology, whether you provide if it's a consumer good. So they're definitely one and the same. And so I think for me, the time frame is maybe perhaps the when, or when does that make sense for the life of your company? Because the other aspect of this is, in a lot of ways, we're talking about concepts of power, like who has the power in making these decisions and who has the power of when these decisions are made. And so if it's one of those things where it's on the strategic vision for the company, but never gets actually executed, there is a dissonance between what you're saying on public, what you're saying in the marketing, like Ian mentioned before, versus what you're actually putting into the experience of the product or the consumer good or the service. So
Right.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. They're one and the same. And I think that sometimes we might unintentionally think of them as different things from each other.
No, I 100% agree that I think they're intertwined. They should definitely be measured, but I think there's also potentially missing key metrics that we're not looking at, right? As well. So, for example, trust would be one from my point of view, right? You know, then you might say, well, how do you measure trust? Well, trust is a multitude of different aspects that go into that, from ethics to human values to, you know, even accessibility. All these different areas kind of really add up to really sort of trust, to say this is trustworthy, right? So this is why I would trust it. And, you know, I think, you know, that's kind of like one metric we maybe are missing, but also another metric we could potentially be missing is even standards and benchmarks that haven't even been created yet. You know, we look at all these different benchmarks and, you know, standards, and we're like, okay, so, you know, on this benchmark and do this, okay, great. You know, it's very technical, it's very mathy. But what about me using it on an everyday basis? Or what about me using this within my specific workflow and that I wanted to do this? Can you measure that, for example? Can you have a benchmark for that? And I think there's a lot of benchmarks and standards out there that haven't been created yet that I think we still need to create and still need to bring up, especially when it comes to like women's health, for example. You know, there should be key metrics and stuff in that's created. So there's a lot there, but the point of what I'm getting at is there's a lot of metrics still missing, and I still think there's more that need to be done. I don't know what your thoughts are on but
I totally agree with that, Russell. 100%.
Okay.
It makes me think about when there's a wonderful podcast that focused on the CEO of Pinterest, and he was speaking with Adam Grant, who's an organizational psychologist, who's kind of like my Oprah. Like I would Daniel so bad. But Adam Grant is a wonderful organizational psychologist. And in this conversation with the CEO of Pinterest, we know that there's evidence that shows the harm that comes from using social media, especially for young people, in their brain development, in their ability to handle the cognitive dissonance, in their ability to have the delayed gratification. And so there actually is something physically happening to young people's brains when they use social media. And so it's not an evidence of like, oh, it's not harmful. It is. And so one of Pinterest's goals is not necessarily the number of time or the amount of time you spend on the screen. It's actually the quality of time spent. And so the new trust in social media is similar to like if you think about with cars, when you had, we first made cars, like seatbelts were taboo one day. That was like, oh my gosh, you can't have seatbelts. That's horrible for the driving experience. You would never have seatbelts, which sounds just like completely absurd today because seatbelts are.
It is, it's fundamental.
Cars compete on how their safety records are, and what if that was the same for social media? If there were the same kind of standards for safety for social media, standards of safety for AI adoption, and we competed on how safe we were, similar to the automotive industry, that future already exists. And so using, that type of industrial revolution to how cars and vehicle safety really guides how people and consumers make decisions is not too far of an analogy from the technology perspective, because will we really tolerate putting a dangerous object in our young people's hands for much longer?
I agree. I agree, and I'm just panelists and audience, who are watching this. Of course, we do go off questions sometimes, so obviously there will be other questions that will be fired. Just FYI, so there won't be just all the questions that we have here. Sometimes we get questions from the audience. Sometimes that'll be my questions where I just mix things up. So just to make everyone aware of that. And Mai, thank you very much. Like I completely agree with what you're saying there. And Ian, a lot was discussed there. Please do share your thoughts and opinions of either this question or even just what was discussed between myself and Mai, for example?
All right. I think inclusivity and accessibility could be a moral obligation and a key metric for innovation success at the same time as well. I mean, in this globalized world, the businesses, without thinking about inclusivity and accessibility, can never succeed. Like even the private companies operate their business based on their own mission and vision. And their mission and vision should be aligned with the global mission and vision, which is like the perspective of the parent, like God, that embraces all humankind. So, like if they want to succeed in their business, they must think about it. So, inclusivity and accessibility mean also economy of scale. So, which means they can cover as many as customers or clients. So I think, moral obligation and key metrics for innovation success. I mean, I think it goes together. I think it's just like what Milo said.
Yeah, so that's what we were just saying. Myself and Mai, we were just saying that, like, absolutely, they go together, and they're both fundamental, and they're both, a part of foundation, so to speak, in order for success, so to speak. So they technically both have to be measured. Whether you measure them separately or intertwined, that's another question. But I do agree with you, Ian, that both of them are fundamental. So, Carlos, we're going to go over to you now, and then Sheila will head over to you after. I've got a different question for you, Carlos. How do we balance the speed of technological advances with the slower pace of constrained adoption? So, Carlos, this is a very interesting question because obviously you're just talking about your clients and stuff. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this.
Interesting question. I think it's hard to balance out because there's no process to balance out. I think when it comes to the process, how we do things, how we focus on, and what process we put in place, we balance things out by putting a process to balance out. And many times, if I build a system with no balancing or no processes in place, and I just say, this is what I want you to do, or I build a system to focus on a certain group of people, and then then there's a focus on these people, there's some balancing to it. So I believe that the process and what we put in place is what balances out the system itself, and the technology advancing, meaning that we're constantly advancing slow and fast. We're advancing in some process, even in small business, right? They talk about AI adoption and technology adoption in the corporate space. But in the small business community, they don't adopt the same way. There's more of a slower progression in adopting technology, AI and things like that. And we have to look at why do they adopt slowly? Because they're scared, concerned, they don't know much. Where now we're hearing about the speed of technological in America industry-wise, but that's corporate America. That's the corporate structure of our society. That's not the actual small business society. And so when you start looking at that aspect, they're putting billions of dollars to this infrastructure, thinking everybody's going to use it. And then nobody uses it, and what happens in the value? It goes down because you didn't put in perspective that one side of the grid does not use it. So I'm a firm believer in understanding that the process put in place, the rules and regulations, the coding, the procedures, the programming, because it's all machine learning programming, what we put in place is what's going to balance out the process and place those constraints of adoption, meaning that if I teach a person one tool, then you create 10, and then you end up creating 10 new tools outside of one. What happens is before we can even get everybody using one tool like ChatGPT, now you create the next generative AIs again, just so everybody to use, right? And what happens is it's like we haven't adopted ChatGPT yet in the full society yet. So, and everybody's creating these new tools, and then you got to check the security, you got to do the infrastructure piece, you got to check the requirements, make sure everybody understands it. And most times, again, we build just for people to use. We don't build to educate, understand, and implement so people understand how to use it so we can increase ownership. So I'm a firm believer in create a process that balances out the speed directly. It's all processes in place. And that's what and that's one thing we actually do miss is the processes in place to make it, to balance out the speed, advancing, and also adoption. Meaning you can merge them together and actually move at a medium space if you use different strategies and techniques. But if you don't use that technique, you'll always have that issue. And I think that from a corporate America standpoint, from investors and everything, it's all about the profit. It's all about the profit. So they don't usually adopt these techniques because they want everybody to use it. They want to build it, get it built quickly without safeguarding the processes. Where in a smaller scale, you can integrate quicker. But sometimes it's slower because you don't got the money, but you don't really need money to create these processes for everybody to use it. It's all about the strategy and process to balance it out.
No, I agree with you, Carlos. And also, I will add this, technology is just advancing so fast. Like, I mean, when we're talking about technological, I mean, we're talking about a broad, spectrum here from, even the last panel that we was having, on XR, AR, VR, etc., all the way to even like Web3 technology, like crypto, etc. And then we're also talking about AI also at the same time. So the speed of technology, especially when it comes to AI, I mean, AI is just advancing so fast that no one can keep up with it. Same with Web3, same with all these different areas. So it's like, at what point, like, I don't think we can slow the pace, like the bottom line of that. But how can we at least get more people to adopt AI? I definitely think lowering the barrier to entry would be extremely important to that. What are your thoughts on that, Carlos?
So my approach would be to educate, right? We all learn every day. It's interesting enough, we have about 5-6 senses that we utilize daily. Walk, movement, taste, tongue, smell, right? And we think those are the senses, but they're not the senses. Those are learning tools. We learn through information, through hearing also. And we also learn through seeing, visual scenes. Like every day we receive trillions of microscopic pixels of information we see daily through our brains daily, through our eyes alone. And we don't ever notice the difference. And I'm a firm believer in education. Educate people on different processes based on industry standards on how to use it. And I'm a firm that once you start educating people and so they understand it better, because not everybody learns at the same pace. Some people learn slower, some people learn faster. Some people don't need you to learn, they're self-learners. And it's key to understanding who we're educating to have them move fast enough to adoption of these tools. Like, think about it. You just mentioned AI, Web3, right? What do they all use right now? That part of the servers, right? The servers. And they all use Web3, AI, all these systems, they all use servers. They use dedicated servers. They use physical servers to power them, right? And believe it or not, they may be advancing, but guess what's not advancing? Our server infrastructure. That's why they're trying to build data centers now of AI data centers to empower it, because there's an issue where the capacity, because our original infrastructure is only made to handle websites and phone services, different. It's not made for AI. And so now they're trying to build data centers to power the AI. So those are advancing, but our infrastructure is not advancing currently. It's moving slower because of the amount of willpower it takes. So in reality, if we're going to look at adoption, and if we're going to look at adoption, constraint, and speed of it all, educate people on different levels. Find out what they know. Find out how they learn. If you know how a person learns, then you can educate them. But if you know how they learn, and you group 100 people in one boat, and you don't ever do a survey and ask real questions and answers about what they're doing, how they learn, what they're doing, how they learn, how they see information, then guess what happens? Then you do a class and nobody gets it. But guess what? If you do a survey and you break it down, you can split those groups up in different levels. So there's immediate, there's information they can learn on the beginning level, there's advanced levels. Those who learn advanced level, you give them advanced training. But those who intermediate, you give them the basic training, the basic information they need. Because some are not going to get it so quickly. So I think that for speedy adoption, it's all about education, learning, understanding how they learn so you can teach better. And that's where that's what I think we're currently at, is education of the systems and technology and AI, not just usership. Usership is
I'll jump in because Carlos, I think you're bringing out some very good points there, and I first of all, thank you for sharing, Carlos, and appreciate you giving us your thoughts. But second of all, AI education is important. I definitely think education across the board is important. I think accessibility of what we've just been speaking about before, that's important. I think human values is important. And also, when it comes to adoption, I also think, trust is also important too, as a fundamental part to that. So I think it's a multi-layered answer to the question. And of course, I completely agree with you. Fundamentally, if we don't have the right infrastructure in place, technically we can't have the most AI, and not everyone can use AI, and there'll be limitations on that. So thank you for sharing your thoughts, Carlos. We'll head over to you, Sheila. Sheila, what are your thoughts on, everything that we just discussed, and and also the question as well.
Yeah, so I can address the prior question in this one. I do believe that innovation in an inclusive way is actually key to our survival. I think we talk about it like it's an optional thing, as if humans can't go extinct, right? Like dinosaurs existed, several species of dinosaurs existed, they're no longer here. We are one strand of species of human that exists on this planet. We really think that we can just keep operating the way we do, and we're just going to continue to exist. Every innovation, ultimately, from fire to the original wheel, was made to do two things: extend our lives or improve our quality of life, right? If we no longer know how to do that, we're going to end our species, right? Because the biggest constraint we have is the planet that we're on. The systems that we need to protect as air, water, fire, right? Our communities and ability to breathe and create life, right? So I don't mean to make this existential, but I think sometimes when we talk about innovation and technology, we're thinking in the microcosm of our own lifetime rather than the entire human evolutionary experience. And another point that I want to make on this is we have to be able to learn from the lessons of the past. Every human age that has transpired, we've seen the same issues repeated over and over again. In colonialism, we exploited human bodies, right? In the industrial age, we exploited human labor and the land. In the information age, we exploited our attention, right, to create this data. Now we're in the age of AI. Are we going to continue to allow ourselves to be complicit in creating systems that are devastating our planet? These AI data centers that Carlos talked about, they consume huge amounts of water, something that humans cannot live without for 3 days. So if we're not going to learn the lessons from the past, we're just going to accelerate our own extinction.
That you do have a very good point there, Sheila, and like we can even go in, dive into when it comes to energy consumption, because right now it's not automatically renewable, and then we need these big massive energy centers so that we can then power all that, and then we're using nuclear power for that. We can go on and on and on, and I think I completely agree with you, Sheila. Is at what point do we say, okay, well, adoption needs to catch up with what we've built and what we've done, right? We've built these data centers, we've built all this power, we've built all this stuff, right? Now we need to let people catch up or adopt or be onboarded, so to speak, so that they can get up to speed with what's been built so far. So I completely agree with you, Sheila, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. And also, Carlos, thank you for sharing your thoughts too. Now let's move on to the next question, which is, how can storytelling become a tool to make innovation more accessible across cultures and languages? Now, this is kind of a bit dear to me because, when we're talking about trust, right, we think about, it has different meanings for different cultures. Some people it's to, trust a certain thing. Other people, it could be just the confidence in something, right, or the belief in something, right? There's different forms of trust. So how can storytelling become a tool to make innovation more accessible across cultures and languages? So we'll go to Loaskan, and then we'll head over to Cedric after. So kick us off, please.
Yeah, so I've got to piggyback a little bit on Sheila's thought. This was the question I did not want.
Oh God, why I gave Sheila the wrong one. I gave you the wrong one. This is all the best, isn't it?
So here's
terrible.
On that. I mean, you touched upon it earlier. When you talk about storytelling and you talk about the ways in which storytelling is intended to leverage innovation in a more accessible space, cultures have different experiences with technology. And right now, in order to tell a story about an experience that one would hope would advance the conversation about innovation and creating more accessibility, everyone has to have, that you're talking to, has to have a shared experience or an appreciation about the experience you're talking about it in the story that you're telling. And so I struggled with this question because I am really concerned at a higher level of the algorithmic divide that's being currently experienced in many spaces where there are folks that do not have access to this technology. And so their appreciation about the ways in which this technology is intended to advance their lives and be able to be more relatable is not even real to them. And so when you think about the algorithmic divide, as well as like the digital divide, there's still people, communities that are still left behind from the digital divide. So even if you were to attempt to equate AI as a technology to one's experience with internet, as an example, there's still some groups that can't even relate to that. And so I am challenged by this question, and for that reason, yeah,
No, honestly, Laskin, like there's no right or wrong answer, right? It's just your personal opinion and what do you think, right? And you know, from like, I guess you could speak from like your point of view. Like for example, from my point of view, when I think about storytelling, you know, becoming a tool to make innovation more successful across culture and languages, is what like. It's very interesting actually, because the thing is, when you're storytelling and you're talking about something and you tell the story to someone, because it's different in every single culture and it's also different in every language, it doesn't necessarily correlate that same story to that same culture and language to another continent or another country or destination. So I completely agree with what you're saying. And when it comes to cultures and languages, you know, by the way, I'm in Britain. I'm in the UK. You know, I'm very like British all the way through. You can mostly tell my accent, but you know, I've lived in my country like most of my life. So like going out of that, yeah, okay, I've traveled to places, and everyone's traveled to places. But when you come back, it's like, oh, okay, well that was fun. Anyway, continue my thing, and then you're like, well, that culture in, like I say, Portugal was different here in the UK. So when it comes to the innovation side of things, it's like, how do we make that so that it is cross-culture, right? It's also cross-language, and it also understands storytelling when you have to create those certain tools to be able to understand that. Because and this goes back to data, which Sheila was saying, which was if we don't have the right data, which has all the right cultures in place, right, and understanding of all this and making it accessible for these different languages, right, then you're not going to be able to have that cross storytelling when it comes to innovation like AI, for example. So, Laskin, I'll leave that right there. We'll head over to Cedric. Cedric, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to actually kind of, I think, weave the last kind of three together, because I'm really big on storytelling, controlling your narrative. My favorite African proverb is the tale of the hunt. If anybody's familiar with it, the tale of the hunt will always favor the hunters because you don't hear the side of the story from the lions. So I'm really big on people telling their own stories, right? So I think Carlos mentioned the human component of it all, and actually getting this, you know, derivation directly from the source. Key example of that, I personally, and I encourage everybody to do this if you can, I interviewed my grandmother just in audio and captured it in real time, right? Because I don't want somebody else to get a hold of that, right? And kind of ruin that, because my thinking essentially is that you have to be the one to tell your story. Otherwise, somebody else definitely will, and they'll tell it wrong, which is what we've seen time and time again when we talk about history. And thinking about before, one of the previous questions around success, I think where we lose a lot of this, and my background is in chemistry. Sorry, I'm going to go there for a second. When we think about, you know, even the balance, right? I think equilibrium. And we think about, you know, a chemical reaction, there's a catalyst that drives this thing, right, to the product. But ultimately, you got to think about, well, how is success defined? Because in most cases, especially in America, let's be honest, I mean, globally, but for sure, right, we're talking about money, right? We're talking about currency. We're talking about, you know, economics and that type of thing. And if we're talking even more so looking now into accessibility and culture, even extending into language, we're talking about reach, which for a lot of people still spells money. So we have to be, I think, cognizant of the intent, again, behind all of it. Like, why exactly? Because I think in essence, what we end up finding is that if there is this kind of equilibrium setup of morality and success of innovation, what happens is money is kind of in the middle of it. And it ends up, one of the things ends up being a byproduct of the other, right? If I'm and I'm really pushing like, yeah, let's teach kids about STEM and careers, right, and help them grow. And you just so happen to stumble across a boatload of money. You're like, oh, that's great, right? Which goes into the growth. But if your emphasis is on the other side and saying, well, how do we grow and get rich? And if we just so happen to help some people, okay, cool, right? Like, but it's still there. So I think at a certain point, truthfully, we have to be honest about this. And we also have to be very mindful of groups that are consistently left out. And I won't even take it to like race or ethnicity. There are two groups of people across the globe that I personally believe and have seen that we don't listen to enough. It's our elders and children. Those voices are not necessarily included. And I'll end by saying personally that because I worked in schools and had a lot of experience and things like that, I wrote an article a while back called "There's World Peace in Pre-K." So I think for a lot of the problems that we see as adults, if we actually paid attention to how 4-year-olds navigate the world in space and time, especially when you're even traveling. I've seen my son in our international travels get along with children that don't speak a lick of English, and he doesn't speak Italian, Spanish, French, nothing, but they're best friends because they vibe off of Paw Patrol. I think that there's something that we can extract from that and learn and then infuse that into what we're doing in the world of what we call innovation.
Wow, well said. And I think you forgot like the Fortnite and all that sort of stuff on Roblox. Like
it's not there yet. It's not there yet.
Okay. And also, Ella says yes, we need to capture the voice of the elders. And also, Captain Walker says we love our grandmas. Absolutely. Okay, let's go on to the next question now, which is there a responsibility for innovators to design with the needs of global regions in mind? So, this is kind of continuing on from what we're discussing about. So what are your thoughts?
This is a big one, and I know we're getting close on time as well too, so I'm happy to be brief on this one. We are all citizens of the world, and I love, Cedric, what you just shared of like there's global world peace in pre-K, and so that.
Sorry to jump in, Mai. I've just been notified. Apparently, like we're literally like out of time, so I'm afraid you're gonna have to be very quick, like less than 30 seconds if possible.
Yeah, I would say yes, because we are global citizens, and do it in the time that makes sense, that doesn't bankrupt or completely overwhelm your company, because it is a big lift, but it is a necessary lift.
100% Mai, and thank you to everybody. Thank you for the panelists for joining us. Please do follow, connect, and join them on LinkedIn. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Every single person here is amazing, so go and check them out. Mai, Cedric, Ian, Carlos, Sheila, Luskin. So please do follow them, connect with them, and that is it for this panel. And up next, we have a couple of videos for you. Yeah, it's been an amazing panel. Thank you, panelists, and I'll see you tomorrow, most probably. But for now, we'll show you some more amazing videos. All right, see you later.
When I was a child, I used to walk into the woods near my home and feel as if the trees were whispering stories far older than me, far older than any human timeline. That early sense of awe never left me. It is what shaped my life's work, to stand at the intersection of nature and technology, and to ask not just how we innovate, but how we restore, not just how we advance, but how we care. Today, when we talk about climate futures, the conversation often centers on technology, carbon capture, AI, geoengineering, These are powerful tools, but technology alone cannot save us. What will shape our future is the culture we build around those tools, a culture of repair, of humility, of care. At Climate Conservancy, the organization I founded, we anchor our work in that belief. We collaborate with youth around the world, equipping them with climate solutions that are locally rooted but globally connected. Technology enables us. Satellites that track deforestation, digital platforms that train farmers in climate smart agriculture. But the real transformation happens when data becomes action, when young leaders on the ground bring restoration to life. I have seen this firsthand. A student in Kenya joining one of the programs to navigate climate anxiety, a farmer in rural India adapting sustainable practices because of digital learning tools, a global youth activist mapping ecosystems and then planting mangroves by hand. These are technologies too, not just devices or systems, but tools that extend human possibility and restore what has been broken. Repair, after all, is a strength. And if we want innovation at scale, we must watch it with care at scale. The climate movement is not only about carbon or megawatts, it's about healing trust between people and nature, between communities and the future they're inheriting. I speak as the founder of Climate Conservancy and also as someone who has advised institutions, built ventures like EcoVita, and spoken across the world. And yet, my deepest conviction remains simple. Leadership is not being the loudest voice. It is about listening long enough to understand what the earth is asking of us. So let's reimagine climate futures as a tapestry of climate, care, and repair. Let's use AI not only for efficiency, but for biodiversity restoration. Let's care for creating platforms where frontline communities are not case studies, but decision makers. Let's measure progress, not just in markets, but in lives sustained. The future of climate is not something happening to us. It's something we are writing together. The only question is, will we be remembered as the generation that innovated brilliantly but cared too little, or as the one that redefined technology itself by placing humanity and the planet at its heart? I choose the latter, and I invite you to choose it with me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Sandeep Ashokan. I work as a data scientist. Today, I wanted to talk about something fascinating, human versus machine, a road towards decision making. For the first time in the history of life, a non-organic entity is capable of decision making. That's artificial intelligence. It is crucial that we, not just the technocrats, but also the layperson, understand how to interact with AI systems and how to trust or question their decisions. Let's discuss an important concept here. That is the explainability versus performance trade-off in AI systems. Imagine that you are using a highly accurate AI model that predicts diseases or detects faces. It's fast, it's powerful. But when you ask why it made a particular decision, it has no clear answer. That's the performance side. High accuracy, low transparency. Now, contrast with that with a simple rule-based system, easy to explain, but not always the best performer. That's the explainability side. Clear reasoning, lower accuracy. This is the dilemma at the heart of AI decision making. Let's look at a real-world example. The Google Photos gorilla incident in 2015. The system trained on millions of images misclassified photos of black individuals as gorillas. No one intended that outcome, but no one could fully explain why it happened either. The company's immediate fix? Remove the label entirely. Instead of explaining or correcting the logic, they just shut down that part of the system. It shows how dangerous opaque decision making can be when systems are left unchecked. So here is the question. Should a system that performs well but cannot explain itself be trusted in sensitive domains like law, healthcare, or finance? Let's consider the other side. A good example. Think of an AI in imaging, medical imaging. When an AI model flags a possible tumor in a scan, it doesn't say yes or no. It highlights which region of the image led to that conclusion, allowing doctors to cross-verify. That's the explainability in action. It empowers human beings to make the final call. Here, the system performs well enough while still being interpretable. That balance is key. So how explainable should AI be? Well, that depends on the stakes of the decision. If AI is recommending your next song on Spotify, maybe we don't need to know why. But if it's denying someone else's loan or diagnosing cancer, we must know why. Explainability should scale with the consequence of the decision. As humans, we often justify our choices after the fact. I just had a gut feeling. Machines, on the other hand, don't have intuition, they have patterns. But when those patterns are hidden, we risk building systems that even their creators don't understand. That's not intelligence, that's automation without accountability. So the road towards decision making, human versus machine, should not be about competition. It's about collaboration. Human beings bring context, ethics, and empathy. Machines bring speed, scale, and precision. Together, they can make decisions that are not efficient, but also responsible. Because the real question is not, can AI make decisions? It already does. The real question is, can we make those decisions explainable, ethical, and aligned with human values? Let's work towards that objective. With that thought, thank you all. See you all later. Thank you.
What an extraordinary and rather thought-provoking series of roundtables, fireside, and talk discussions. What did you learn? What did you gain? Did we waste your time? Did you find that it was valuable? We ask nothing from you but your time, which is everything. GatherVerse is a free platform. It's been that way, thus it has been for 33 global summits. If there were something we were asked you to pay, beyond paying attention, it's to pay this forward. Tell somebody what you've learned today. Manifest the things that you've heard today. We can't wait for someone else to be the light. We can't wait for someone else to carry fire. We can't wait for someone else to implement trust. And we cannot wait for someone else to pass down to our generations to come the amalgamation of what it is that we find ourselves challenged and confronted with today in this hyperscale of artificial intelligence at the frontier. We cannot wait for someone else to do it. If you don't do it, and if it's not you, then who? We hope that we've instilled inspiration in you for you to be able to remove yourself from this device, from this platform, from this internet, and to go and tell what it is that you've heard. That every corporation and company in the world is in need of a chief humanity officer. Someone that can guide these technologists and let them understand we support your innovation, but we also support your innovation when it's secured and encapsulated and enshrouded in trust. When it stems from ethics, when it finds a place of privacy, when we're protecting those and the vulnerable, when we're defending those who cannot defend themselves. Humanity First is not just a set of words that we brandish and that we use when it comes to GatherVerse. It's not just a banner, a flag, a PNG file, a JPEG. It's never been more serious than now. We think that we know artificial intelligence and applied science, physics, and quantum. None of us are prepared for that which is to come. The level of technology that myself and others have seen, not only here in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, the things that are only around the corner, the warnings that we've been given, subtle and not so subtle, we are ill prepared. But I believe if we have a fortification that builds within, strength within, to prepare for that which is to come, then those fields can be crossed, those shores can be forded, and the river crossed. And none of us can do it alone. We've started this summit with Africa to Asia to the Middle East, now here to North America. Europe and South America is next week. But we have a day 2 that's coming up, and we have a lot of people that have a lot of things to say. I hope that you would follow the speakers that came before you today. I hope that you would take in their message and support them. And really, in your heart, be the singular demonstration of what it was that you heard today. Live it. That's my challenge I give to each of you. Live it. Beyond the social media metrics, beyond the likes and the reactions and the shares and the influence, the things that people crave and they told us that we had to crave. Beyond all that, beyond all these desires that we want for social graces, live it. Innovate for human betterment. Build for civilized sustainability. Create with compassion and care. And join us at GatherVerse and tell us why you've taken this path. I'm not a man of wealth. I'm not that. I'm just a technologist with a small desire to want to give back, as I've been taught, freely that which was been given unto me, secular and sacred. There are many people that have taken time to help guide me in technology, guided by giving grace and mercy. This is in some ways me giving back. This isn't about Christopher Lafayette. If this were, I would not be here. This is about the collective responsibility and the inherent responsibility that we've been given. We've never been this way before, and our predecessors have built a foundation that we build on top of now that they've never even been. And the children of tomorrow that will inherit what it is that we innovate, and they will ask, who thought about us before they inherit what they are about to inherit? I have deep concerns. Universal basic income, universal basic services, are not going to happen, because when people lose jobs, they're not paying taxes. And when taxes aren't being paid to governments, governments are not able to afford the care of all the people in the world. We are in the AI frontier, and we are in a creative renaissance, and we must innovate to find a way forward. And if we don't, and if this does not happen, you fill in the blanks, because I truly do not know. This is the most serious that it's ever been. This is our 33rd global gathering event. And right now, we have this moment with the liberties and the freedom and the access to be able to express, to be able to inspire, and to be able to guide. My goodness gracious. Either the foundation of the internet itself is built by sprockets and keyboards and circuitry, or still governed by the affairs of the heart, and my hope, guided in goodness. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending time with us. Headstrong into this world, knowing that it's as volatile as it's ever been. Make it make sense and make it matter. Today, our gather was well. And when we meet again for the next time, if we're so afforded the opportunity, may our gather be well. Thank you. Take care and be well.
Oh Well, there is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know